quick one before we start. If you're sick of living off servo pies and guessing your way through meals on the run, this is going to help. It's Power B from Nature B. It is a full meal replacement shake. We live on it and we thrive on it. It's not a snack, it's actually a meal. And it's got grass-fed whey protein, probiotics for gut health, and it's the only shake in Australia with Nature B's Power Pollen built in. 2 shakes a day. It is that simple. If it doesn't work for you, Nature B gives you your money back, no questions asked. The intro pack's $39.95. There are links in the description. And like anything, it works best alongside regular exercise and a balanced diet. Now, let's get into the episode.
In a world where voices are silenced, one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast with Luke Boner. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 85 of the Bonafide podcast with me, Luke Boner, the millennial, and lots of other people who are going to join us. I think I'm really, really looking forward to this episode because you're going to hear some great stories. We'll get to that in just a second. But the millennial who is still in Tassie joins me remotely. And you've got a shout out.
You do know that we do like all of our records remotely, essentially.
Well, I just think it's very, very interesting that you're down in Tassie and yet it looks like you're just in the next room.
But we speak to so many people. Yes, Luke. Yes, it's amazing
Anyway,
what technology can do.
Just humour me, Kelsey. Please just humour me.
Yes, okay. Yes,
you'll
it's
be very
amazing.
pleased to know, and I wonder if you can put this video up somewhere. We are looking after Kelsey's beloved little Miri. Her name is Riley, and she's just gorgeous.
She's the cutest.
And her hunting instincts really came to the fore. This is for a little Groodle.
She's a
Her
cavoodle.
hunting instincts, Her hunting instincts really came to the fore yesterday when a praying mantis snuck into our living room and your dog went into hunt mode. So brave. Brave. Unbelievable. And I sent you the video. Are you able to let people see that?
Yes, I'll post it on the subscriber page so you can see. But she is full of beans, that girl, and I miss her dearly. Our little blazer bubbles.
She misses you too. And
No, she
your mum was
doesn't.
out with her.
She doesn't miss us at all.
Yes,
She's living the best life at your house. She gets to go for swims every day. She gets fed treats she's probably not meant to be fed.
Yeah.
She loves it there. She
Correct.
doesn't miss us one bit.
Well, Kelsey, when you have grandchildren, and this is your child at this point, you spoil your grandchildren. It's as simple as that.
It's true.
So anyway, she's an absolute delight. But if you want to see Riley's hunting instincts really springing into action over the prey, it wasn't even a fully grown praying mantis. It was anyway.
She's got the hunting skills of a goldfish, Luke.
She's very, very vicious.
Oh, yes. So vicious.
Kelsey, you've got a shout out to make.
Yes. So as you guys know, the boys from the Dashboard Light Parodies, they're going to be making our new jingles copyright free. Thank you, boys. We'll have them in a couple months' time. But I learnt that Kim and his wife just had their second child. So just a shout out to you guys and congratulations on the new baby. 2 children in the house, all the luck in the world. And I'm sure it's going to be an interesting 18 years.
Has there been a gender reveal?
Oh, I actually don't know, but Kim, send through the details.
God, it's a wank how people do that with the balloons and the confetti and all of that. Why do people? Where's this gender reveal thing? When did that start?
Oh, it started a couple of years ago. I don't mind it. I mean, you know, if people want to do it, I mean, good on
It's
you.
just attention. Oh, everyone look at me. Let's put this on YouTube. Let's put this on Insta.
Oh, Luke, if it makes people happy, who cares? But I just laugh at the ones that are, just so over the top, like the ones where they get their motorbikes and they do like the burnouts, but they put like the coloured smoke in their wheels. So when they burn it out, like the colour comes out. People have done fireworks and stuff like that. Like I actually find them quite entertaining because some people will just, if you've got the money and time to do it, then go on and do it. If it makes you happy, I am here to be entertained.
It's just attention seeking.
You're
put
such
a message
an old
on your
fart.
social saying it's a boy. Or are you not allowed to say that? It's a girl. I mean, no,
Luke,
we
get
can't
off
reveal
it.
its gender until, anyway.
Such an old fart.
So congratulations to the Bell family. That is just great news. Now, Kelsey, you remember last year I had a fascinating conversation with Kerrin Hofstrand, the daughter of the late Gordon Piper, who played Bob Hatfield in the TV series on Channel 7, A Country Practice. A fascinating, the ketamine queen she was known as.
Not ketamine.
So I went down a hole there. Did you see what I did there?
Very good.
And anyway, she was eventually arrested for dealing drugs and spent 2 and a bit years in Mullewa Women's Prison. And her stories about being in a women's prison are fascinating. And we're going to do a deep dive with Kerrin Hofstrand a little bit later in this episode. I think you'll really find it fascinating. Also, coming up, we've got Professor of Political Science at Sydney University, Professor Simon Jackman, coming up. Oh, the State of the Union address. God, it went longer than Gone with the Wind was a very long movie. It was longer than Gone with the Wind.
Nice.
And how does Donald Trump and the policies that have been put in place by the Republicans, how will they affect Australia? And how much longer has Donald Trump got? Because according to the polls, Kelsey, the Republicans are on an absolute trip to a toweling at the midterms coming up in November. And Trump, while will remain for another 2 years as president, unless something happens, he is going to have an absolute uphill battle against a Congress that will be predominantly a Democrat Congress. It's going to, and possibly even a very hostile Senate. So we'll talk about that. And what is the go with the ISIS brides, this group of women and young children that are looking to come back to Australia? There's a lot of pushback from both the opposition and the government to these people coming back. We might have a look at that. And they say that Donald Trump's grip on the White House is a house of cards about to come down. Well, the House of Windsor is well and truly in the process of collapsing. What's the future of the royal family? So we'll talk to Professor Simon Jackman about all of that and a bit of fun with the Man Cave, the Vice Captain, the Millennial and myself, and we'll talk about some of the issues of the day.
We love the news. Something to think about. Something to laugh about. That's right.
Just a headline that took my attention this week, Kelsey, and it's something that I've been banging on about for a long, long time. When you have a young person committing a crime, if that person used to go to an exclusive private school, it's the fact that they used to go to an exclusive private school that makes the headline before the offence. Here's an example. Instead of a young man was so drunk that he tried to get back into a burning car to retrieve his mobile phone after rolling it on the Central Coast, a court has heard. Harry Cotton, 20 of Huntley's Point, faced Wyong local court on Monday, where he pleaded guilty to high-range drink driving and negligent driving. But you know what the headline was, Kelsey? A former Trinity Grammar student was so drunk he tried to get back into a burning car and retrieve his mobile phone after rolling it on the Central Coast. How come the fact that he's a former Trinity Grammar student is the headline? If it was,
don't know.
If it was Kelsey Menzies, former Pittwater High School student, gets arrested for shoplifting because she feels entitled to, it wouldn't say former Pittwater High School student Kelsey Menzies.
No,
it would just say a Northern Beaches woman was arrested. But how? Yeah. But if you went to Queenswood or Frensham or, I don't know, one of the very, very posh, expensive girls' schools, it would be that would make the headline. Kelsey, explain to me why.
Oh, I could not tell you. I do not know why this is a thing. Maybe because...
But have you noticed that? Have you noticed it's a thing?
Well, I mean, I've never really thought about it until you pointed it out. But I don't know, maybe just because private schools are like held to a higher standard. I don't know, but it seems superfluous. It seems silly. And what's the point of it? You know, does it change the story for a normal viewer? Maybe for the audience, we care more because this person is meant to be of a higher class. So it's more entertaining for us plebs reading it. I don't know.
But it's true. And now that I've pointed it out, you'll see it all the time now.
Yeah, it's
Former King
everywhere.
School students, charged with this or that. Not former Narrabeen High student Luke Boner. No. If I went to King School, that would make the headline. And I don't know why.
If a journalist is listening to this, can you tell us why? Like, why is this a thing? What is the reasoning behind it? Because since Luke's pointed it out, I see it everywhere and it's confusing.
I don't understand it. Listen, a very serious story. You remember we were talking about the innocent grandfather, Chris Bagazian. I hope that's the way you pronounce it. It was a case of mistaken identity. He was kidnapped, videos of him being tortured and eventually murdered. They found his body. Well, they've arrested two killers, one 29, the other 24. They're now facing charges. This is the saddest, most terrible story, isn't it?
It's horrible. He's been found dead now, which I think everyone kind of suspected would be the case. The people who have been charged are only 29 and 24 years old. But I think what really got me about this story is these have got to be the stupidest criminals in the world, because the alleged target of this kidnapping plot lived 3 doors down, and he is apparently a very wealthy property developer. He's living in Las Vegas and he wears $7,000 tracksuits and all this stuff. He is very, very different from what Chris looks like. So you have got to be some of the stupidest criminals to get this so incredibly wrong.
Alleged criminals.
Alleged criminals, yes.
There, thank you, Kelsey. But it's the saddest story, mistaken identity, an innocent grandfather.
But how do you mistake that identity, Luke? How do you mistake that identity?
Stupid. Because they're stupid. Anyway.
Did they not have, in all like the spy movies and stuff, they get given like a little packet of information.
Photograph?
Yeah, a photograph and that type of stuff.
A photograph?
Like, what information did they have? What packet of information did they have to do this?
I don't know. It happens a lot. It happens more often than you think. Now that this has happened, you'll see this too. Oh yeah, so-called outlaw motorcycle gangs firebombing the wrong house.
Oh, you're right. Yep, you're right. I remember that. Crime
doesn't pay, and intelligence you can't buy.
That's very true. I think the criminal gangs need to do. Yeah, that was pretty good. That should have been your thought of the day, Luke. But I think that these criminal organisations need to do a better job of initiating their criminals, because surely this just brings such unwarranted attention.
It's unbelievable. Now, something a little bit lighter. Kelsey, you've got a pizza story. What the hell is your pizza story? Listen to this.
Well, we're very passionate about pizza on this podcast, and you'll know that if you listened to the Man Cave.
So long as it's got pineapple.
Yeah.
It's got to have pineapple.
Yep. You'll know that if you listened to the Man Cave a couple of episodes ago. I was scrolling through the news like I always do, and I came through this headline. Pizza inspired by ancient Romans features stomach-churning toppings, including fermented spinach juice and fish sauce. Jeez. And there's no mozzarella or tomato in sight. So chefs at a pizzeria in Budapest have come up with a limited edition pie using only ingredients that would have been available 2,000 years ago in ancient Rome. Yeah. So this is what it includes. It includes fermented spinach juice, olive paste, fish sauce, and confit duck leg. And I got to say, Luke, the picture of this pizza looks absolutely diabolical.
Oh.
What does that look like to you? Describe it for the people listening. What does this look like to you?
Okay, I'm looking at it now. It looks like a round piece of shit with regurgitated goodos that you used to feed your dog.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that could actually make it better, and I'm saying this very tongue-in-cheek, is if you covered it in kale.
You know what it reminds me of? When you go walking around Narrabeen Lake and you go on like the foreshore where all the ducks do their poops. That's what this reminds me of. It reminds me of the...
It's very good.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of because it is diabolical. Guys, this is an absolute tragedy for pizza lovers around the world. But I mean, I guess if you're into this, I honestly don't think you could pay me to eat this. But I wonder, like, does it taste good? Does it just look bad and it tastes good?
Kelsey, I looked up the definition of pizza in the Oxford Dictionary. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah.
So what is the definition of pizza? Oxford Dictionary. Pizza, noun, plural, pizzas. Thanks, Scoop. Pizza is a dish of Italian origin. The Americans think they invented it, but they didn't. It is Italian. A dish of Italian origin consisting of a flat, round base of dough baked with a topping of tomatoes and cheese, typically with added meat, fish or vegetables. A cheese and tomato pizza, for example. That is the Oxford Dictionary's definition of a pizza.
Oh, well, the UK court's going to come after these guys because you can't call this a pizza then. There ain't no cheese or tomato in sight on this thing.
Doesn't mention pineapple either, the definition, the Oxford definition. So
I know.
Maybe pineapple isn't meant to be on a traditional pizza.
Well, I guess pineapple's a fruit. So it's not meant to be on pizza.
Oh, but tomato's a fruit and it's on pizza.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
See, I'm all over you today.
Yeah, whatever.
Kelsey, you've got some voice messages. Let's have a listen.
Yes, and Luke, neither you or I have listened to these, so it's going to be a surprise for us
This
both.
is fresh.
This is fresh. Let's have a listen to the first one.
Yeah, g'day, Luke. Name's Adam Craig, mate. One thing, you speak to Rod Hannafy a fair bit about all the issues on the road and all that. Mate, I just want to talk to you about Rod, to be honest with you, mate. Like, he one bloke that doesn't get enough recognition. And
okay, we will save that.
We agree, Adam.
We agree, and we will get Adam back because he's left a phone number, and we'll try and get him back for Truckee Tuesday.
But also, Luke, when we went to Dubbo, we were talking about getting Rod nominated for Australian of the Year or one of the other awards. Like, what's it called? Like, there are different categories.
There's an OBE.
Yeah,
There's an Order of Australia.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because he deserves that, but we need, everyone.
He needs an Australia Day recognition.
He does.
We'll get our heads together and we'll try and get Rod the recognition he really deserves because he has saved a lot of lives and his passion is second to none.
Oh, he's
Adam, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. Got another voice message here. I haven't heard this.
Hello, Bonafide. Hope you guys are having a lovely day. My topic is on vaccinations. I think what the issue is they've, at one stage, vaccinations had a place, they did the job. They didn't have extra things all through them. We're all being believed that now they are adding extra things into it and we can't trust it. We don't trust it.
What extra things? Where's the backup? What's he talking about? Vaccinations save lives.
Oh, absolutely. But I do think that this listener raises a good point in the fact that people don't trust the medical system anymore. And I think
that's because of the conspiracy theorists.
No,
that happened during COVID.
But maybe
you'll get autism if you have a vaccination.
Maybe, Luke. The issue is around education. The onus is always on the individual to teach themselves to learn these things.
They do. They look it up on Google.
I know, but why is that? Why don't we have better health programs? I just think it's a lot of pressure to put on the individual because some people, they've never been taught how to source information. They've never been taught how to fact check. There's only so much blame we can put on the individual before we have to look at the government and say, do better. If your population believes that there's something wrong with vaccines, educate what's in them. Give us a better understanding of what is in them, what these things do. Teach us these things because the onus is all on the individual.
Well, that's why we talked to Dr. Norrie. He's got 8 degrees and he takes no nonsense. but maybe there needs to be a federal health initiative that, from a medical perspective, tells the truth about what we're putting into our bodies, instead of people just going to doctor. Oh no, then they'll say, oh no, that's run by the government. They have an agenda. They're in cahoots with big pharma.
Well, it's better than doing nothing.
They're selling us propaganda. If you have a narrative in your brain and you won't be swayed, you won't look for another side of the story. You'll just keep going with whatever it is that's in your heart and in your brain. And some people don't look for the other side of the story like you do, Kelsey.
I know, but yelling at people that they're wrong doesn't solve the issue either, right? So what do we have to do to find a middle ground is the question. Let's move to the next one.
Okay.
Dave's my name. Listen, what's this for the ISIS brides getting passports? I've got to pay $400 just to renew my passport. It's going to take months. So what anyway, love you, Luke. I'm an old Narrabeen boy too, mate. Hooroo.
Oh, good on you. 2101. The ISIS brides. Gee whiz. I was going to say it's a massively divisive topic, but if you look at polls, and look, these polls, depending on the question that's being asked, a lot of Australians, because this has bipartisan support, so the government and the opposition are in fierce agreement on this. They don't want these people coming back to Australia through fear that these women and their children have been radicalised. I tell you what, we will talk about this from a arm's length political sense, without opinion, just the fact on what's going on, when we talk to Professor Simon Jackman, who is an educator. He's a professor of political science at Sydney University, and we'll try and find out a little bit more about what's happening with these so-called ISIS brides and see if we can shed some light on it.
That's a good point, though, don't you reckon, Luke? When it comes to the logistics of it, who actually covers the cost of these things?
The Australian taxpayer.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. It's an interesting point raised there.
And it's interesting. I heard on radio this morning, and this was firsthand, from the father of one of the women coming back and her flatmate, who both say she knew exactly why she was going over there, that she thoroughly believes in Sharia law, and that she went over, the father's words, she went over to build bombs.
Oh, that's not good.
And now that they're in camp, now that ISIS lost that particular war, and I'm glad they did, she wants to come back home.
Yeah, that's kind of where the line should be drawn.
Last one, let's go.
Yeah, hi, Luke. It's Shaz from WA. We're just wondering how we can get to listen to you if you have a radio station over, because we miss you from the Triple M night shift crew.
Shaz, God love you.
Listen to the podcast, Shaz.
It's the podcast. That's why I'm here, because I got punted a year ago this week.
Isn't it crazy that people still ask what radio station you're on?
Yeah. It's the odour that lingers. It's the boner odour that's still lingering.
Please never say that again. Oh.
You can put me in your pocket. You just put me on your phone. Bonafide, Luke Boner, and we're here for you twice a week, every week, rain, hail, or shine.
Yes.
Or contact the management at Triple M and tell them that you want me back.
I think that ship
I'm
is
sure
sailed,
that
Luke.
Shaz will change their minds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we need more Shazes. Coming up, what's going on in the world with the House of Windsor, the House of Trump, and the ISIS brides? Professor Simon Jackman, Professor of Political Science at Sydney University, he's coming up.
I'm sitting back, radio on, Luke Boner talking, keeps me rolling along. Stories and laughter that brighten my day. Got that bluesy rhythm, but it's swinging my way. Oh, I got the Luke Boner blues, but they're the kind that chase away the gloom. Tapping my feet, smiling wide, happy blues, riding with me tonight. From the outback tales to the city lights, spinning yarns that feel just right. Every word's a beat, every lap's a tune, turning my blues into sunshine soon. Now the blues ain't always sad, you see. They can lift you up, set your spirit free. With Luke on the mic and joy in the groove, I'm singing happy blues. nothing to lose.
Well, there's always a lot going on in the world, and our go-to man is Professor Simon Jackman from Sydney University, a professor in political science. He joins us on the Bonafide podcast again, right on the tail end of Donald Trump's marathon State of the Union address. God, strike me pink. I'm glad that you get paid to listen to this stuff. A very, very warm welcome to you, Professor Simon Jackman.
Thank you. And recovering from that 1 hour 48 marathon State of the Union address, a record.
Just for those who aren't sure, what is the State of the Union address? What's it all about? What's it there to accomplish?
Well done. It's a great question. The Constitution of the United States provides that from time to time, and it's become a year, at least once a year, the President shall report to Congress on the State of the Union. Now, remember that the United States system is, it's a presidential system. It's not a parliamentary system. The President sits apart from the Congress. It's an odd thing for Australians to think about. Where we've got the Prime Minister taking questions every sitting day of the Parliament. But the idea is that at least once a year, the President has to come and tell Congress, in his own words, what's up. And over time, though, it's become a platform for the President of the day to outline, we'll talk about whatever he wants to talk about, but usually his legislative program, and in this case, the case for Republicans to be re-elected at the midterm elections, or in some cases it's when a president is facing re-election and it's a great platform to talk up their accomplishments and whatnot. But that's what it is. It's a fixed thing in the American political calendar, and under Donald Trump it's become bigger than Ben-Hur.
It's a production.
He's set 6 out of 7 records for the longest. 6 of the 7 are now Donald Trump's, including this most recent one, the longest, running at 1 hour 48. They're usually under an hour. An hour was thought to be getting long. Trump is just, because of those extemporaneous ad-libs, mad-libs, going on and on and on. And the theatricality that Donald Trump has brought to these events. Now they've really taken on a completely different character to what I grew up with and saw under, say, the likes of Bill Clinton or Barack Obama.
We'll get to how Australia and Australian foreign policy and trade policy will be affected by some of Donald Trump's decisions. But I just want to ask a question. It was a great question that Kelsey actually asked. Explain the midterms coming up in November. Because constitutionally, you can only be president of the United States for 2 terms, and they don't have to be consecutive, as we now have seen. Now, so, God, I've got a lot to ask you, and I know you're on a time limit. What are the midterms, and what if the Republicans lose the midterm elections? What's the story?
Yeah, great question, Luke. So every 2 years, and this is crazy, we think we've got a short 3-year term in our federal parliament. Most of our states are now on 4-year fixed terms. Think about being a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. There's 435 of them, and they're only ever elected for 2-year terms.
Right.
So the president is elected to a 4-year term. The House of Reps is up every 2 years. And so that middle election, right? So Trump was elected 2 years ago this year. Come November, it will be 2 years. So this coming November will be what we call the midterm for the House.
Yes.
And 1/3 of the Senate is also up. And what's particularly intriguing about midterms, a couple of things that tends to happen. The president's party gets a bit of a surge. The party that wins the presidency is often dragging a few more votes in their direction in the House election that got the president elected. But then there's this midterm sag, if you will, because Donald Trump will not be on the ballot. His voters will probably not turn out. And so expectations are always, it doesn't really matter who the president is, this happens every year, every midterm, the president's party goes backwards a little bit. 2 factors this time. One is the Republicans only have the most narrow margin, 1 or 2 seats in a 435-seat chamber at the moment. So expectations are the Republicans are going to get annihilated at these midterms.
So Donald Trump remains president, but will have no impetus in the House of Representatives if the Republicans, and the polls are saying the Republicans are going to be wiped out. So explain that kind of democracy to us, because we're used to the Westminster system.
Yeah, well, one thing that it does have in common with the Westminster system, then, once you've got control, if the president's party does not control the House of Representatives, all the committees, all the investigatory committees of the House of Reps are now in majority Democratic control. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is now a Democrat. And all of a sudden it becomes way more adversarial. It becomes very hard for a Republican president to get, particularly this Republican president, Donald Trump. He is going to be so at odds with where the Democrats are, and it's going to really just jam the works up. It's in no small measure, Luke, why Trump has been going so hard and so fast in this first 12 months. Because I think they looked at the results of the election. Yes, Trump is president, but we've only got the House by 3 votes, 4 votes, 5 votes. We're likely to lose it at the midterms. We're going to go hell for leather. Yeah. That's what they've done. And here's the other thing, with the Epstein stuff all around, with so many scandals, with all these allegations of Trump self-dealing, and the list goes on and on and on and on, that if they lose control of the House of Representatives, Democrats are going to be investigating the living daylights out of this administration, not only not helping them legislatively, but actively going after them with investigations. The Democratic base will accept nothing less. And that's why there's so much heat in these midterms now, because I think the stakes have suddenly got a lot higher for Donald Trump, because it's not just he can't get his legislative program through. It's all of a sudden the gloves are going to come off. Like, we haven't seen nothing yet on the Epstein stuff if the Democrats get the House in November, to say nothing of all the other scandals.
So what power will Donald Trump have if the Republicans are annihilated in November?
So this is the other thing. Trump is basically asking for forgiveness. He's not asking for permission. He is out there literally on occasion, if not breaking the law, then certainly ignoring it. They are demonstrating a commitment to what's called the unitary presidency theory. That is a view of the U.S. Constitution that they're testing, literally either in the courts or in the real world, with this idea that the president is not quite a king, but is the closest thing we've got to an elected king, directly elected by the people, and the president has just all this power. And they are really committed to that view, and they are breaking all, certainly, norms and in some cases laws about the limits of presidential power, putting pressure on the Federal Reserve, their equivalent of our Reserve Bank, putting pressure on everything from the justice, who gets prosecuted and who doesn't, putting pressure on all the heads of what we used to think were more or less independent agencies of the federal government. They're doing things like that. They are using a lot of what Trump has executive orders. So ordinarily, Luke, if I put my professor hat on and tell you the standard story of American politics is that when we have a mismatch between the party of the presidency and the House of Reps, it's a real handbrake for the presidents. And I think the Trump people are going to test this mightily, and there will be a car crash come this time a year from now, perhaps January, February even of next year, when a Democratic House is telling Donald Trump no, and the Trump White House is saying, you try and stop us, we'll see you in court. And ultimately, the car crash will be the power of the purse. That is fundamentally the last resort, right? Money has to be appropriated by the House of Representatives, and it's when the U.S. government starts to run out of money that then I think Trump will be forced to negotiate with the Democrats. And that won't happen, I think, until probably the middle of the year.
Okay, so let's get back to how this might affect us here in Australia, because we've seen massive tariffs and a recommendation of even more tariffs, and that affects all our exports, including lamb, beef, wool, grain, you name it. Will that all stay in place if he loses the midterms?
I think they could even be over before then. So what's happened? The courts, Australia had this 10% deal. And then the courts came along and said, President Trump, the way you've done that was unconstitutional. And then Trump literally on the same day turned around and said, but I'll use this other statute that allows me to impose tariffs, and I'll reimpose tariffs that way, a blanket 10%. And that meant Australia was in the same boat. And then literally like an hour later, he went, no, to hell with it, 15. So
I know.
This is Donald Trump. So Australia has gone from 10 to 15, but under this other law he's using, he can only do that for 150 days, right? So 5 months, basically. So up until when that takes us through to about August, say. Then he's constrained by the usual trade processes on the US law books, which require long investigations and detailed reports of how this country is treating the US unfairly or that country. That'll really jam things up and might dribble over into the new political reality. And then I expect to see the Democrats will say the tariffs have to come through us, and they're going to make that a condition of any deal they do with funding the Trump administration. So I think in the short term, a bit of tariff pain for Australian exporters, beef in particular. It's funny though, Luke, beef, Trump was talking about the price of hamburgers. Yeah. It's a sore point for the US. They love hamburgers.
And the price of the hamburgers has gone up because of his tariffs. It hasn't helped them.
Yeah, exactly right. And a big source of hamburger beef in the United States is Australian sourced. And putting a tariff on Australian beef is only, hitting, a lot of American consumers.
I know.
So if anything, that's going to get worse in the short term before I think it'll probably settle down, and Australia could be back at a, business as usual, at least as what it looked like, say, a year or two ago, possibly by August, September. But again, that's what I'd predict today. We'll see what other cards the Trump people pull out of the deck. They are so religiously committed to this idea of tariffs that they are going to look for any creative solution. And see my earlier remark about up through and including breaking the law or requiring it going all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States to tell them what they're doing is unconstitutional. So for now, looks like it'll go back in 150 days' time, but like all things to do with the US and Donald Trump, watch that space.
It is just the world is just unbelievable. Well, last thing on Trump, because it's just going to be fascinating, and thank God we've got you aboard to make things clear for us and educate us, and I really appreciate it. He will remain the commander in chief. Will he still have? He'll still have his finger on the red button. Is he still in a position to negotiate peace between Zelensky and Putin and Israel and Palestine and Gaza and Iran? Is he still in that position as commander in chief?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a constitutional matter, absolutely he is. I think the real question there, Luke, is what does he want to do, and what do the players in those conflicts want to do? I think the other thing you'll see is that if the Democrats take Congress,
we'll get a third of the Senate going. Yeah,
that's right. But those numbers are tight too. And with Trump's so unpopular now, a lot of analysts are starting to look at the prospect that the Dems don't just win the House, but they might even take the Senate. But in particular, if both chambers fall to the Democrats, and not even that, even if only one did, frankly, there's a huge understanding among DC insiders, particularly members of Congress that really care about America's standing in the world, that they have to be on Zelensky's side. They can't let Putin get away with this. And Biden was putting together the intelligence and the flow of weapons that the West was supplying to Zelensky was destroying Putin. They were just messing up Putin so badly, and Trump has backed away from that. It's making Ukraine's position incredibly precarious. They're prevailing nonetheless. Europe is standing up a little bit. I think watch the US come back on the side of Ukraine pretty heavily could be another consequence of the Democrats taking control of one, if not both chambers of Congress in November. I think that's just ridiculous. I just think that one's gone away. That was. I'd be astonished if that came back. And the bigger one that's more on our radar is, we could be hours, days, weeks away from a major U.S. military intervention in Iran. I think that's the front burner issue that I'm keeping a very close eye on this week and into next week.
We will keep an eye on it with you. And if you can continue to keep us informed, it's so interesting. You talk about the Trump House of Cards possibly tumbling down in November. The House of Windsor is also tumbling down, and it gets back again to the Epstein files, and God knows what else is in there and what's been redacted and what hasn't. But we saw history in the making 2 Fridays ago when we saw Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the artist formerly known as Prince, actually arrested, no charge yet, but his days are numbered. And his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, who's also a disgraceful thing, she could be in a lot of trouble too. But a lot more people are getting into trouble. I have said that I think that for the royal family to survive, they need to completely pull the plug out the wall, wait 2 minutes, put the plug back in, reboot. I think the king should abdicate and William needs to take over to completely start again, because Andrew's behaviour has been enabled by both his brother and their late mother, and the public can see this. What are your thoughts on the future of the House of Windsor?
I think they survive this. I think Charles is doing a pretty remarkable thing, letting, to the extent the royal family's got any, imagine behind the scenes they do, this prosecution going forward against Andrew.
They haven't even touched on sex offences yet. We're talking about, and that's the thing. If I could use Andrew's words, behaviour unbecoming of a gentleman, whilst being a trade envoy and getting rid of top secret documents, which is an act of treason with a sentence of a maximum sentence of life. But we haven't even touched on the sex trafficking and sex with minors yet. Yeah,
and other offences there that were committed on UK soil or in a way that would expose him to prosecution in a court in the United Kingdom. I think Charles is by exposing Andrew to prosecution is signalling that they're not, how seriously they're taking this. It's hard to imagine Charles abdicating. He waited so long to get that role. It's a pretty good gig from what I hear. It's hard to imagine a set of circumstances in which he abdicates absent Luke, something extraordinary that I think publicly and embarrassingly reveals his culpability, and not just in a tacit way. I think we need some sort of smoking gun that showed that, quote, Charles knew all along, ... and they were covering up. I think something like that spectacularly coming into the public domain, and who knows, Andrew might even feel spiteful enough to sort of put that out there in his right of I'm going down and taking you all with me. Who knows how that one...
I think his ex-wife, the former Duchess, I think because who's in desperate need of money, and we've seen will do anything for money. I reckon a tell-all is just around the corner, and I think they're terrified of it.
And they probably should be. There's nothing like someone cornered, and what they'll do. He's been stripped of his royal title. It's not a great existence that Andrew has in front of him, nor Sarah Ferguson, and so I think that's the danger. I think in the short term to the royal family, and maybe you can see a pathway there that leads to sort of William ascending the throne sooner rather than later.
Can you please shed some light on this, because there is a lot of confusion surrounding the so-called ISIS brides, and I just want you to give us a political background on how this all came about. We're talking about a group of 34 Australians, including 23 children, that have been living in camps in Syria since the fall of the so-called caliphate, and some of those children were actually born behind that razor wire. Who are these ISIS brides? What did they do? Do we know? And there's debate going on as to whether or not they have a right to come back to Australia if they are Australian citizens. Both the government and the opposition have said, no, we don't want them back here. Can you explain the situation?
Oh, I'll do my best, Luke. I'm not across the details, and I don't think anyone outside of the inner reaches of the government and security establishment is across the details of the individual cases. But there was, in bright letters, Australian governments of both sides were advising people not to go to that part of the world, and certainly not to participate or align themselves with ISIS. So the guidance from the Australian government on that couldn't have been clearer, number one. We have this, and it's a diabolical combination of humanitarian concerns. There are children who are Australian citizens, or certainly entitled to Australian citizenship.
Some of these children were actually born in Syria, though.
That's right.
To Australia. And there's a concern that these women and the children may be radicalised and ticking time bombs if they come back. That's the concern. I'm not saying it's true, because I have no idea. Concern. But that's the concern. Yeah. But
it creates this extraordinary dilemma for the government that's trying to balance, I think, some legal questions, like people, if you're Australian, there's a lot of law that says you're entitled to a passport. It takes, there can be extraordinary circumstances when you can deny, a passport. But there's the ethical question about denying someone who is an Australian citizenship the right to return to their country of origin. But you've got to balance that against the legitimate security concerns and now we get to the political question, and just the temperature in the country at the moment after the Bondi massacre.
That's the only
word. Yeah, I was fishing for the right word. That's the only word. It was a massacre, and while that is so fresh in our memories, and the country is still collectively traumatized by that. Just putting my political hat on for a moment, or someone that studies campaigns and public opinion, there is no way a Labor, of course you're going to err on the side of slowing this right down. And yes, it's terrible for perhaps the women and the children that do not pose an especially dire security threat, but my goodness, you're going to scrutinise the living daylights out of these people before you admit anybody back into Australia under these circumstances. Just, you think even for a millisecond, you put yourself in the shoes of the Prime Minister or Tony Burke, the Home Affairs Minister, the senior figures in the government who have carriage for this stuff at the moment. There is absolutely very little incentive for them to, break speed records to get these Australian citizens back into Australia. You are going to slow this right down. And here's the other thing, even in the best case, you're repatriating some of these people, the resources will be committing our security agencies having to, frankly, to monitor these people, to make sure that they weren't radicalised, that they haven't gone deep underground and are sort of starting to just waiting and eventually going to, because that was, it seems, part of the story that we missed with the Bondi, one of the Bondi shooters in particular, that there was an assessment that this guy was exposed to a radicalisation pathway. And then it was literally 6, 7, 8 years later that he commits these atrocities. Once you multiply that by, there are 15 or so families we're talking about. That's one number that's out there. Just think of the burden that we're talking about putting on our security agencies. You are approaching this one very, very slowly. And around the dinner parties I go, there are strong views on either side of this. I find myself taking a strong view that the government ought to be going very slowly and very deliberately, both as a matter of good public policy, but certainly as a matter of reading the politics of the moment right now. There is very little political upside for Anthony Albanese and the Labor government to be breaking speed records to get these people back to Australia.
Pauline Hanson, who has been a contributor on this podcast in the past, I'm very shy getting her back on, because when she said there are no good Muslims, that's the most outrageous thing I've ever heard in my life, because there are plenty. there are plenty of great contributing Muslims, including the man, the hero of Bondi. But maybe next time we talk, Professor, we can talk about what is ISIS, what is Sharia law, and hopefully then we can get your academic explanation on the origin of the far-right radicalised Islamic faith versus moderate Muslims who want to live here peacefully and contribute. Because I think Pauline Hanson was absolutely out of line saying that, and that worries me a lot.
And not for the first time, Luke, has Hanson been out of line on that, and in a profoundly, I think, unhelpful way with respect to the question I was just alluding to earlier. Like, we rely on the good faith and the cooperation of those elements of the Islamic community who are committed to a safe and prosperous and secure Australia to help keep their young men and young women on the right side of the line, and to turn away from those voices, and being pushed away like that by a figure with as much prominence as Pauline Hanson is profoundly unhelpful. I remember the time she would wear a burqa into the parliament as a stunt. It's going to get her on the news, and good on you, Pauline. But I remember the fury with which the then Attorney General, George Brandis, who at that point had responsibility for ASIO, and just he could see literally in real time what was happening, that all the overtures that mainstream Australia makes, that Canberra and your security agencies, the good faith and rapport that they're trying to build up inside these communities just gets eviscerated, when someone like Hanson pulls a stunt like this. So it's watching social decohesion happen in real time when we see some of those very unhelpful interventions from Pauline Hanson.
Professor Simon Jackman, thank you again for your time. You've probably got eager young minds ready to absorb your wisdom at Sydney University as we speak. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Luke.
There's a lot to talk about, and thank you for getting back to me. I hope you've been well.
Yeah, no, I've been really well, thanks.
Last time you and I spoke, we spoke for quite some time about your very, very colourful past and your father.
Yeah.
Your time both overseas and here in Australia. We talked about you being arrested for selling and dealing with drugs and going to jail. And you said, look, I've got some stories to tell you about what life was like back then in a women's jail. And you said, well, we could save that story for another day. Well, that other day has arrived. So thank you so much.
Not a problem at all. Anything to get the story of female jails in Australia out.
What year was it you were arrested and sent to jail? We're talking about Conlon. Explain Conlon.
Okay, so I was arrested on June 8th, 1991, and I got out on December 8th, 1993. Conlon is basically the first stop on your trip through the system. So I think it's still named Conlon today, even though the name of the jail is not Mullewa anymore. The name of the jail is now just Silverwater Complex, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was in, it was Silverwater was the men's and Mullewa was the women's. And your first step on the road to hell was Conlon, where everybody went, whether you were a murderer, whether you sold drugs, or whether you were just a hooker on the street who was in for a 2-month warrant. It didn't matter.
And the way you were processed was very, very interesting. Take us through that.
I was busted on a long weekend. Of course I was.
Yeah.
So therefore I was in the SPC cells from the Saturday until the Tuesday. Under normal circumstances, if you were busted on the Monday, they'd put you a bail hearing on the Tuesday morning, and then you'd be out at Mullawa or wherever, if you're a male, the following day. They don't like to keep you in the SPC, you know what I mean, the turnover. But because it was a long weekend, none of that was going on. So I had to wait till the Tuesday to get out there. By that time, it was known that my father was who my father was.
Gordon Piper.
Yeah, by the police telling the screws. Obviously, I've thought about it over the years, and I'm thinking, how would they even know when I've been in jail, when I've been in cells? And then I realised it was the cops that told them, but because Dad had contacted them.
Gordon Piper was one of Australia's most recognised actors. He was on A Country Practice. He played the plumber Bob Hatfield, and was extremely recognisable and a household name.
Yes, he was. Yes, he had. But people now, it's funny how as time goes on, I'll say, oh, yeah, my father was Bob Hatfield on A Country Practice. And if you talk about it to somebody, say under the age of 40, they're like, what, who? You know, funny how times change. But, you know, it's still streaming on 7+, so somebody has to be watching it still. So they just take you in. They strip search you, whatever stuff you have with you, they take away and they list it all. Well, because of the way I was busted, I didn't have anything with me anyway. You know what I mean? I had me. I don't even think I had a purse or anything. I can't remember me having a purse or anything, because what happened was 5 weeks later, I was doing that. I was working up in reception, which was a trusty job. But because of who my father was, you usually got that job after about 5 years. I got it after 5 weeks. Because of who my father was, and they wanted me to shut up. They didn't want me to be contacting anybody. So they gave me that job. So I don't even remember me having any bags or anything in reception, because we used to hold everything. And that was it. And then they took you down to Conlon. Middle of the night, usually. It was never the middle of the day. It was always, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night.
And look, because of the chat we had last time, did you think that being busted, arrested and sent to prison was inevitable? Or were you at that point where you thought, gee, this drug caper is going smoothly, I'm bulletproof?
No.
Or were you surprised?
No. Any drug dealer, now look what just happened in Mexico to the leader of the cartel. Any drug dealer who thinks he is infallible is living in some sort of heaven-sent insanity, because I was a street dealer, I was a dance party drug dealer. I wasn't dealing heroin. I wasn't out there. I was out there every day, but I was in pubs, and I was just not, you know what I mean? It was a gay dance party drug scene. So
you weren't standing outside schools or soliciting underage kids.
Schools. Yeah. That's what I said to the judge. I wasn't dealing heroin to anybody under the age of 18. I wasn't dealing heroin at all. It wasn't my drug. My drugs were ketamine, which I was the first person to ever be busted with in Australia, and also ecstasy. So it was always around dance parties or weekends. They were my times, But I knew, and it was funny, one of my roommates about 10 days before, so it was winter and we had an open fire in West Street where I lived. And I was just standing near the fire, and Kevin said to me, don't you ever get scared, about getting busted? And I said, no, I don't get scared, because anybody who thinks they're not going to get busted is a fucking idiot. I mean, you're going to get busted. At some point, it's going to happen. I have no knowledge of any drug dealer that is still working today that was working in my day. Yeah. Of my type. I don't know about heroin dealers or ice dealers or any of that shit. I don't know those kind of drugs. But anybody who is dealing, even coke, I don't know any coke dealers who are still dealing today. you're an idiot if you think you're going to be, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So you're arrested on a long weekend.
Yep.
And for processing, you go to Conlon.
You go out to Mullawa, you go to Conlon, the first step.
Mullawa. And then where?
Well, you're in Conlon. Okay, so Conlon is, as I said, it's a meeting place of everybody. Everybody goes there. Now, dependent on your charges is whether or not you're going to ever get out of Conlon or if you're going to be in Conlon for the whole time. Now, if you're on a 2-month warrant as a street hooker, which there aren't many of these days, but if you're on a 2-month warrant, and I see it because I live in the Cross, I see it all the time, you know, with guys that are just probably homeless and they're getting busted by the cops. You know they're going out to Silverwater for their warrants because they stole something from some shop and them given bail and didn't turn up for the bail hearing and whatever, la, la, la. So there's those people that are there, and there's also murderers there. Dependent on your charge is dependent on how long you spend in Conlon. Now, with me, again, I was a totally different kettle of fish. I knew murderers who were in Conlon who were there for 6 months. Because of Dad, because I got the job in reception 5 weeks after I went in, right, the way that they changed the rules at the drop of the hat, I went straight to medium security. So they're wings that are kept really nice because the girls that are in there for life, or they're in there for 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, whatever. So the wings are really well kept. I was in with the girl who was the runner of the kitchen. I was in with other girls who ran the library.
You were sentenced to 3 years and 2 months.
No, I was sentenced to, in jail, 2.5 years. 3 years, 2 months, or 3 years, 8 months was I think it was 3 years, 2 months, was my top sentence, what's called a top sentence. And the bottom sentence is how long you do in jail, and I did 2.5 years in jail.
It's a long time for suddenly someone who's led such an extraordinary life, both here and overseas, and experiencing such a broad brand of life to suddenly be confined. It must have been a hell of a shock. But it's what you experienced in jail that prompted you to want to talk today, because life for a female prisoner, you were telling me off air, was a lot different to life for a male prisoner, and the system was set up to favour male prisoners more than female prisoners. But I just want to get back to something that you shared with me. Please tell me if I've got this wrong, but you talked about dealing with corrupt prison officers. You refer to them as screws.
Yeah.
How many of them
were corrupt?
Back in the day, were corrupt?
I would say probably 1 in 10. Not, I mean, when I say corruption, I mean, for example, this is an example of the corruption. It was nothing like, I don't know, letting people out of jail early or any of that crap. The corruption was female screws having affairs with female inmates. That happened all the time. But the most corrupt thing that they did personally to me and to the girls that I was in now, when I went to minimum security, so we're out of Conlon, we're out of medium security, and we're in minimum security because I'd been sentenced. There was a girl, Pauline, she used to cook all cakes and everything for visits on Saturdays, right? And for the Starlight Foundation. And over the year, so when visitors walked in, they could buy cakes for the inmates who were going to visits. And over the year that we were doing it, we raised $6,000, right? When Pauline went to get the money to send the check or whatever to the Starlight Foundation, the money had gone, in inverted commas, missing.
Wow.
So there
Wow.
was no money for the Starlight Foundation, and Pauline said, "That's it, no more. We're not doing it anymore. They've stolen the money." So that's something I know 100% happened, and the only people who had access to that money were Screws. There was nobody else. So they figured, we're only inmates. Who are we going to complain to? And we'll just take the money. And so that $6,000 went missing. But, you know, when I was also in minimum security, it doesn't happen so much it happened in medium, but not in Conlon. So Conlon's maximum. Then we were down in Brady, that was medium. And then out at Norma Parker in Parramatta, that was minimum. But in medium and in especially minimum, there was always somebody screwing with a screw.
What do you mean?
Well, just what I just said. Having relationships with inmates. And there was at least two that I know of, two couples, who ended up when the inmate got out, the screw quit and they became a couple.
Was this a male having a relationship with a female? Or
female.
A female having a sexual relationship with a female prisoner?
Yeah.
Because I remember you saying that you well, please correct me if I'm wrong, you said most of these screws were lesbians.
Yeah, most of them, yeah. I would say, oh God, at least 85%, maybe more.
Why do you think the job attracts people of that persuasion?
I think because I always say this of screws, I would, there's only one screw that I wouldn't cross the road to either hit or run down with my car, right, that I knew. But I always think that they are wannabe cops and they couldn't make it. A lot of them are overweight, right? I mean, 50% of them are overweight, so they couldn't run if their life depended on it. Male screws that are in female jails, definitely the bottom of the barrel screws. Why are you a male in a female? What, you don't want to be in a male jail? You're too weak to put up with the men? I mean, what's your reasoning here? You know, because they have a choice. It's like, it's a government job. You can apply for it or not, you know? So a job comes up at Mullewa and you're a male. What the hell are you doing? Why aren't you going to Long Bay? You know? They were really the weakest of the weak. But I didn't ever know, probably because the females weren't interested in it, but I didn't ever know of a female-male relationship at all the whole time I was out there.
I remember you telling me that there weren't many, if at all, services for most of the female inmates unless you were a junkie. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not services, medication.
Right. Explain that.
If you go in as a junkie, the thing that they want you on immediately is methadone. Some junkies aren't on methadone, you know. I remember doing a lockdown, meaning that something had happened in the jail. Don't know what, can't remember. And this is within the first 5 weeks because I still was in a cell with somebody else. After the 5 weeks, when I got my job in reception, I had my own cell because of the hours you worked. And I was in a lockdown, which means you're not allowed out of the cell, with a girl who had just come in. So this was in Conlon. And when you first come in, they ask you, are you a heroin addict? Are you on heroin? Right. What drugs are you on? Whatever, you know, normal, not like a doctor's thing, you know. And this girl didn't want to tell them that she was on heroin. Like, she didn't look like a junkie. And she didn't want to tell them that she was on heroin. So she said no. And then we went into a 3-day lockdown. Yeah. And she went through withdrawals in a cell, 8 by 10, with me in the cell. I'll never forget it. It was like,
what happened? I've never seen that. Describe it.
Well, it's just like people like thinking that things are crawling out of their skin. They're in like racked in pain. They're in the fetal position for 3/4 of the day. They're crying. They're just in a lot of pain. You know what I mean? I don't know. I've never done heroin. I have no clue. but they're like, cramped up, all that kind of stuff. Whereas if she would have been honest,
Yeah.
even in lockdown, they would bring the methadone around to the people who were on methadone. Now, I went in there drinking 2 bottles of Stolies a day because I was doing the rounds of the pubs. So to deal my drugs. So, and I had a lot of the bartenders working for me. So every bartender would get me a double Stolies on the rocks with a splash of lime every pub I went into. And so I was up to, a bottle and a half, 2 bottles over a night, right? And which seems like a lot, but in those days, I mean, I was young and I could handle it, and I wasn't really drunk. I was just doing my job. But I was, in real terms, I was an alcoholic, and there is nothing for alcoholics. There's nothing for people who are on some sort of antidepressant. You don't get if somebody is like mentally ill and on an antidepressant, you have to go through a whole rigmarole of going to their nurse, seeing them before you can, unless you've got it in your bag when you go walk in, a whole rigmarole to get your medication. In that time, your mental illness could have gone down the toilet again, because the nurses were only out there for once a week. Whereas with men's jails, they're out there every day. Whereas with men's jails, there's a gym for them to work out in. They have exercises, you know what I mean? They've got classes, do whatever. We had nothing. All money gone to men's jails, no money gone to female jails at all.
What about feminine products that women need that men don't?
Now, let me think. I think we had to buy those in buy-ups. I don't think, well, maybe they were supplied. Jesus, this is a long time ago, Luke. Maybe they were supplied, but if you wanted a particular product, you had $25 a week. If you had it in your bank, if you had somebody on the outside giving you money, then you buy the product that you wanted. But I think from memory that they had pads and tampons there. I'm pretty sure. I mean, health-wise.
You would think so. You would think so.
World Health Organization, I'm pretty bloody sure they'd have to. You know what I mean?
Because I remember you saying that female inmates were treated like 3-year-olds. What did you mean by that?
Because I always said if I ever write a book, like I do my story on TikTok under Kerrin, Kerrin 1954, I do it chronologically on TikTok, right? I mean, that's how you got onto me and how Gary Jubilant got onto me, but I would call it I'm Not 3 because they constantly treat you like a 3-year-old. Like you've got to be taught, like it's like Hofstrand, stand in the corner. Well, I was standing in the corner because that's where my cell is. Their derision of you, their putting down of you was constant. It was like this was what they took pleasure in, was pushing you down all the time, treating you like a child, telling you what to do at all times, even though you were doing it, even though you could have been like the star student of the jail in like whatever you were doing, like me at reception, I'm doing such a great job. Still, I'm not doing a good job. Still, there's something I'm doing wrong. They just have to push you all the time. It's like they've got their finger on your back like this.
Yeah, so to wear you down. Is that to wear you down and take away any self-esteem? Because you were saying that the authorities, the screws, were constantly telling you that you were going to reoffend.
100%. That's why the recidivism rate is so high in Australia versus in Norway, where they've just closed the last jail because there wasn't enough inmates to keep the jails open.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Whereas in Australia, they need to build more jails because there's more people going in. It's kind of like becoming like the United States where it's overcrowding. Because they keep telling you up to the day you walk out, oh, we'll see you again. You'll do it again. You know, you got nothing else in life. You'll do it again. And this is to people who weren't as strong as me, who didn't have the kind of life I had. So if you're talking to them, those kind of people, they go out, which are the junkies on the street, the hookers on the street, people who have done B&Es, break-and-enters, you know, people who are struggling in life in some way or another, they take that with them. And they do reoffend, you know.
How many of your fellow inmates do you think were under pressure and under a spell, if you will, or under threat from domineering males?
Oh, really and truly, I don't think that many.
Right.
Because it wasn't like what people think. You know, women in prison, they're all there because the guys told them to go out and deal the drugs.
They have a pimp. They're working for a pimp, and they're getting paid in drugs, so they're hooked.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. Not with the girls I was in with, because I was in with a lot of murderers. So nobody tells a murderer what to do. I was in with one girl who you could say was probably under the spell of
influence
of a guy, but it wasn't really under his influence because she was a bikey chick. I've actually been in contact with her family who contacted me through TikTok. She's passed now. But she was a bikey chick, so she was like in the bikey scene. Right. And she actually shot her best friend because she meant to shoot somebody else, and the best friend jumped in front of the other person and was killed instead. So she kind of had regrets about that all the time she was in, but she just didn't settle for 8 years, and then she settled. But no, I can't, unless you're talking about the junkies in the street who, we don't have that kind of mentality here. There's not pimps walking around. The sex workers up here in the Cross, even in those days, weren't in some big, house of 20 women. Their reason for being on the street here was to support their heroin addiction, not because of some man saying, the only man they're talking about would be the man feeding him the heroin, but it could have been a woman feeding him heroin. It didn't matter, you know?
Yeah.
I never saw that. That's a very Americanized way of thinking of things, because the Americans and the blacks and all of that kind of, false narrative we get all the time, when if you look at today's politics, it's actually the rich white people that are doing that kind of thing, not the poor black people, you know? No, I didn't. I really didn't see it. And if I did, they kept it from me because they knew that I would be on them, you're an idiot.
Yeah, because you're a very, very strong woman.
I was.
I think you still are. But here's a question. Sexually, nothing shocks you, and we've covered that in our previous chat, that your very, very colourful life. Nothing shocks you, but were you at all harassed, or were you tried to be coerced into sexual favours for other favours? Did you ever feel that you were compromised? I guess maybe not for you because you are so strong.
No. And I didn't, the girls that I was in with, again, I'm realising that I was only in Conlon for 5 weeks. That's where all that crap happens. I saw a girl raped with a broomstick there.
Oh, geez.
Right? That's a totally different world. And, of course, there were no screws around to stop it. Of course not, because God forbid that they would be around. And God forbid there'd be CCTV down in that area. Not where I was, because where I was where our home was. It was a wing called Brady West, right? There was Brady East, Brady West, then there was another 2 down the down the hill, and somebody on TikTok told me what it was named, and I can't remember what it was named now again. But they were real homes. They were like really nice. And if a girl wanted to be with a girl, they were together in the wing. We had like 2 or 3 relationships going on in the wing, but they were consensual relationships. Nobody was forcing anybody to do anything, you know?
Were you ever in fear of your life? Were you... Because it's a very scary place, and if you're surrounded, if the only form of protection around you is corrupt, did you ever feel compromised? Were you ever scared?
I was extremely scared when I first went in because I didn't know what I was coming into, and somebody asked me again on TikTok. Somebody asked me what was like the first day like and what was the last day like, kind of thing. And my first fear of jail was knowledge. I didn't know how long I was going to be there. And that fear stayed with me for 13 months until I was sentenced. I didn't fear anything around me because the first day I came out of that cell, so I'd come in 7 or 8 o'clock at night, so everybody was in their cells. And I came down I was at the end of the block on the left, so I had to walk past all these cells. And whenever anybody comes in, it is like, you know, you see in the American jails. Only in our jails, you've only got a window. You don't have the full cell thing. They're in jails, like SPC.
Yeah.
And I could see people's heads looking at who the new inmate was. And so I thought at that time, I stayed awake most of that night, and I thought at that time, I'm going to make this my own. This is on my terms. And so the next morning when we're unlocked, everybody goes out into the main muster area. And I walked up to everybody and I said, "Hi, my name's Kerrin. What's your name?" And I just shook everybody's hand. Yes. Because I wanted them to know that I wasn't scared of them. I was not, you know, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm a pretty robust person. So it's not like I'm some little weak human being. And then after a week, they found out who my father was because he came out for visits. And then the whole attitude of everybody changed. Then it was like, because everybody out in jail was in those days a country practice band.
Tell us about when your dad did come and visit, Gordon Piper, Bob Hatfield from a country practice. What happened when he came to visit?
Well, whenever he came to visit, I would know, right? Because you can only have one visit a week, right? On the Wednesday and Saturday. So 2 visits a week, but you can't have a whole crowd of people come out. So Dad had put down to come out on a Saturday. And then the one phone call I'd get, one week I'd contact Nan, the next week I'd contact Dad, whatever it was. I knew with my father it had to be kept secret as it could be, right? Although that didn't work very well, but it worked well in the media, but it didn't work well in the jail. So whenever Dad came out, I would always say to the girls in the wing, "Oh, Dad's coming out on Saturday." And through the jail would go the whisper of Kerrin's father's coming out. Yes. So everybody who could get a visit, especially the junkies, everybody who could get a visit would get a visit on the day that Dad was coming out, because the screws were so enamored with my father being who he was that we were on like picnic benches, you know, like not small ones, but long ones. And you weren't allowed to kiss the person or anything like that. There was no physical contact. But all the screws, they'd wait for a certain amount of time, all the screws would slowly walk up to our area, up to where Dad and I were sitting, wherever that was. And then all of a sudden, all of these other girls would be kissing their friends, you know what I mean? And so then it'd be like, "Oh, you know, no kissing, da, 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 da." And then you go back down into the wing, and in each wing, I mean, I know only from my personal experience in my wing, when I was in Conlon, the vomiting and the number twos were being done because they were getting up or down what they'd put in their body.
Really?
Yeah. But it was all because the screws were too enamored with my father. It was their own fault that there was stuff going around.
Wow. So your original sentence, 3 years and 2 months, but was less. You got out in less than that.
2.5 years. You always get a parole. So 3 years, 2 months is what is called the top sentence.
Yes.
And then the bottom sentence is what you do in jail.
You have been an advocate for better conditions for women in prison.
Yep.
And you've achieved a lot of that. Are you proud of that? You should be.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've put out the knowledge. The woman who probably did the most for changes in women in prison is a woman that years and years ago I did an interview with. Okay, so there's a guy named John Birmingham who wrote, he died with a falafel in his hand.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So his girlfriend was a girl that I worked with when I was doing works release. I ended up working for them as well at Corrective Services Industries in Regent's Park. And Heather was their marketing manager. Her boyfriend was John Birmingham at the time. And when I got out, I did an interview with John, and he, on the same interview, interviewed a woman named Blanche Hampton, who wrote a book called Women in Prison. And it was a really interesting book. So she's the one who initiated some changes. I then just rode her coattail and tried to do as much as I could. And then I used to write out the blueies, which were the complaint forms and the request for appeals, etc., for the girls who weren't eloquent enough to write or couldn't write, one of the two. So I got 2 girls out on appeal that way. That was my shining hour, those 2. And just small things, but Blanche Hampton was the one who really started the gravy train running, you know what I mean, the train running.
Well, things have certainly changed since then, but just going back, we discussed this in our previous chat, so please, listeners, go back to the first chat I had with Kerrin, which was last year. But your dad was wrongly accused of sexual abuse crimes, and there was a retraction printed in the paper. It was front page news when the allegations were first made. The retraction made page 12, bottom right-hand corner. It was a disgrace. But he was wrongly accused. But let's talk about your very famous dad. Did you feel when you were incarcerated, did you feel as though you let him down?
No.
Tell me about how your incarceration affected your relationship with Gordon Piper.
My father, I had an excellent relationship with my father and my mother when she was alive. She died in 1981. I was living in Hawaii at the time, but I came back to nurse her because I was a nurse in intensive care. And I came back to nurse her for the last 2 months of her life. She was in a private hospital, but she used to come home every weekend to organise a funeral. She was only 44. Anyway, she passed in 1981, and my father married this woman who worked on a country practice as their equestrian person, married him just for money. Not that there was that much, but there was enough to marry him for. And my brother and I both couldn't stand him, couldn't stand her, could not stand her. And she pushed an estrangement between myself and my father. So after 3 years of them being married, they broke up and she got the bulk of his estate, his whatever money, because he just wanted rid of her, right? I would say that was about 1987, 88. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So by 1991, when I got busted, we were just barely getting back together as a father and daughter. Then I rang Dad and he goes, well, my nickname's Bugs. And he goes, well, what do you want, Bugs? He goes, do you want the story? I said, no, just in case the Daily Mirror, The Sun, or Channel 9 or Channel 7 contact me, I just need to know what really happened. You know, I was really sarcastic. And it was around Mardi Gras time, because I was in Mardi Gras every year as one of the red ribbon ladies. Anyway, And he said, I didn't do it. And my grandmother, who was my mother's mother, couldn't stand my father. I never could stand my father, just for their own reasons, you know. I mean, she was civil to him. My grandmother was the greatest woman that ever walked the planet. But she, for her own reasons, couldn't stand him. And when I rang her, she said he didn't do it.
And if your grandmother said he didn't do it, you knew he didn't do it. Because if there was any possibility that your grandmother thought he'd done it, she would have 100%. Been into him. But she said absolutely not. Your dad had diabetes and was...
Well, by the time he went to court, he was already a unilateral amputee. By the time he passed, he was a bilateral amputee below the knee. I mean, like, he had no sex drive whatsoever for at least 5 years before, or 4 years before, the charges were even laid. It was all about the mother. It was all about the mother who had the hots for him, and her kids went to his acting studio, which is called Fast Focus in Penrith.
Is that near Penrith, I think? Yeah.
And so, you know, it was all that. Didn't affect our relationship. What affected our relationship was he told me that he was going to do Supreme Court bail for me, put a caveat on his house, right? And he pulled it back. So I didn't get out. And I thought I had this grand plan in my head that if I got out for Supreme Court bail, then I would just run. You know what I mean? But I didn't get Supreme Court bail. I did my 2.5 years, and now, 34 years later, I look back on it like, oh, well, I'm glad I did that, because it just it really did straighten me out. Not that I was bent, but I straightened me out.
And if your dad had put his house up for your security, he could have lost his house.
That's right.
You would have. So you're telling me you would have done a runner?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah.
All right, let's talk real life for a second. Most of us don't fall off the wagon because we're lazy. It's because we're busy. Long days, weird hours, grabbing whatever's closest. That's where Power B comes in. It's a proper meal replacement. It's chocolate in flavour. God, it's delicious. It actually fills you up. And it's built with premium grass-fed whey protein, probiotics for digestion, vitamins, and Nature Bee's Power Pollen for energy and overall well-being. It's not about starving yourself or doing anything extreme. It's just 2 shakes a day to replace the meals that normally throw you off track. Simple, consistent, done. They've got an intro pack for $39.95, and it's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. So you're not taking a gamble. There's no chance in this. If it doesn't work, they give you your money back. But it does work. Have a look at naturebee.com and always use it alongside a balanced diet and regular exercise. Would you have gone back overseas to America, or would you have
probably
just hit
probably, because at the time I had 2 passports.
Right.
Because things were totally different then. You could ring up the passport office and go, oh, I've lost my passport. And they'll go, okay, come down and get another one. So I had 2 passports.
Right, yeah.
It was like weird. Like, you know, it was like when I got the drugs, when I got the ketamine and the ecstasy through poste restante. Like, there was no checking of anything, you know?
Yeah. So but just to explain that's a term people may not quite understand. So back in the day, before all the electronic devices and security checks they have today, if you lived overseas, you could send a package to Australia and someone else could go and pick it up for you and use someone else's name, so long as the name was the same as the name that was on the package. And you were receiving these drugs from the United States in macadamia jars. Right. Yeah, we did discuss that. It's unbelievable. What did you learn from your time in prison?
I learned that the court and jail system in New South Wales, I don't know about any other state, needed a big kick up the arse. So let's go to court first, right? With court, I had a great lawyer and I had a great barrister. And in those days, there was a judge named Judge Joe Moore. And there used to be a saying, get more, get less.
Right.
So my lawyer and barrister chased his cycle, because they do a cycle, they're at King Street, they're at Supreme Court, wherever. So they chased his cycle until my date came up, and then because I was going to King Street, and put off my case, my hearing, my sentencing, until we could get Judge Joe Moore. It's because we get more, we get less. Now, if that's not corrupt,
get more, get less.
If that's not corrupt, I don't know what is. And in jail, they just don't care. They put you in a cell, and that's it. You've got nothing. They don't tell you. I found a letter from my grandmother, the first letter she ever wrote me, about 3 months ago, in a suitcase that I was cleaning out my storage area. And she was saying, they told me that I could send some money to you and that I have to ask to come out and all this kind of stuff. And she had sent me money in an envelope, and on the back of the envelope, in screw writing, it said, no money is to be brought into the jail. This has been put into your buy-up account. Well, tell that to the 78-year-old woman that rang you to ask you these questions, They just didn't care. Once you were in there, you were a number. You're what's called a MIN number, which is administration number. So it was your MIN number. And for the longest time, I remembered it. I don't remember it anymore. So you had a MIN number, and that's all you were. That's all you were. That and your last name.
I used to be friends with the then governor of Lithgow Jail,
Right.
John O'Shea, and the governor. And I remember saying to him, how do you control a lifer, someone who's in for serious crimes, murder, and they know they're not going to get out of jail? How do you control them because they've got nothing to lose? And he said, no, they're actually the easiest because they know. He said, because I control their life.
It's not about them controlling anything. It's not. He's in his mind is doing the superiority thing. Because the thing is, because they're in for life, or 20 years, say, which is life here, right? Because they're in for life, unless they're like the Kathleen Knights of the world or the Amanda Butterfields of the world, the ones that are really bad right now, right, who will never be rehabilitated, the normal lifers who have done, in inverted commas, a normal murder, right, they want their life in there as peaceful as possible. They want their wing to be gorgeously clean. It's their home. It's where they're going to be for the rest of their life until they move to minimum security. And then when they move to minimum security, their rooms are perfect. They're really good with a job. They'll go out, come home. They don't want any shit. Not about the screws being in control of them. It's about them knowing their fate and going, okay, let's make the most of it. I don't know any lifer who doesn't have that attitude because they want it to be as peaceful as possible. So if somebody like in my day, a woman named Roseanne, whose last name is like pussy, she ended up getting a $2 million settlement from the government because she was wrongly convicted. She was thrown out of our wing because of her sexualisation towards the screws, whether they be male or female. Whenever there was a muster, she'd stand there with her hands behind her back with all full makeup on at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they'd go, her last name, and go, here, and just this sexualisation of a whole being. And so the lifers in this wing, which was a lifer's wing because nobody knew how long I was getting, the lifers said to the screws, you get rid of her out of our wing or she'll be dead tomorrow. That's how much they hated her. And I was in the cell next to her. I hated her.
Did you ever witness a murder in jail?
No.
No? A bashing?
Bashings, yeah, of course. There's bashings all the time.
What would you get bashed for? What's something that
again? It goes back to Conlon. Again, you're not talking about the medium security or the minimum security. Although minimum security, they got a big mouthy because they were getting out soon. You know what I mean? But in maximum security in Conlon, there was a lot of fights because everybody was a junkie and they were all like, you know, I saw you, you know, like they just thought that their crap didn't stink, you know what I mean? And so they'd fight with each other all the time over the most minuscule things about, that's my coffee, it's not your coffee, that's my milk, that's not your milk, all that kind of crap. And that's why if you're in Conlon for long enough, you will go crazy. These girls are so used to it, that's their wing. They never get any further than that because they're only ever in for, at the most, 3-month warrants, you know?
Prisoners who are today put in protection are usually people who are either police informants or people who have harmed children, for example.
That's right.
How were those sort of prisoners treated in your experience?
We never saw them. I saw them.
Right.
I saw them when they first came in because I was working in reception. But the segro, which is what it's called, segregation, was totally aside from the jail itself. At first it was right in the middle of it, but you couldn't see in it because the walls were 10 foot tall and nobody ever saw them. And if somebody was coming out of segro to go to reception for some reason, then that was in a lockdown situation. So everybody, if you were working, it was the middle of the day, you were working in the sewing room, you stayed in the sewing room. Working in the library, you stayed in the library. If you were in the wings, go back to the wings, right? You couldn't be out while they were being transferred from segro to wherever they were going.
When I had a walk through Lithgow Jail, they showed me an example of some of the weapons that the male prisoners, we're talking about male prison, and I couldn't believe shivs, knives and things fashioned out of anything. Did the women that you experienced make weapons?
No.
Nah.
So
are women prisoners in your experience not as violent as men?
They can be violent, but they're violent with their hands. They're not violent with knives or shivs or anything like that. They're not known for that. And you also have to understand that there's a time of the month, and this is a known fact health-wise, if you work with a lot of women, your cycle becomes part of their cycle. You just cycle together.
Yeah, I've heard that,
Imagine 350 women
all menstruating at the same time.
Yeah. So therefore, that's when everybody was on edge. It was the PMS before it, But that's when the fights would happen. I don't know that I ever saw anybody with a knife. I think Kathy one time that's the girl who was the bikie gang member, when she took over the pharmacy, which was the most hilarious thing in the world. When she took over the pharmacy, I think she had a knife then. But I think it was because we didn't have knives. You had forks and spoons, we didn't. Yeah. And nobody was angry enough like men get to want to shape something out of a toothbrush, It wasn't that kind of anger. Men's anger is different to women's anger. Women's anger can be taken out with a fight,
One of the most popular television programs on telly at that time, obviously A Country Practice, but you also had on Network 10 Prisoner, which was set at Wentworth Detention Centre, a fictional women's jail. And that was on and very, very popular at the same time. Your dad was a star over on the 7 Network in A Country Practice. Was Wentworth Detention Centre, the TV show Prisoner, was it pretty close or did it glorify it? Or how close was the TV show Prisoner?
I never worked in the laundry, so I don't know. But I do know that the type of talk that went on, and I never watched Prisoner.
Did you have a vinegar tits?
I what?
Oh, but I think it was Maggie Kirkpatrick's the
head one.
Oh, it was vinegar tits was her nickname.
We had Pat the rat. That's Pat, who was in my unit, and she was head of the kitchen. And we used to get pepper, which was not allowed, because you could blow it into the screw's face, right? And we used to get lemons because you could make, and oranges because you could make a brew. Not that we
alcohol.
Ever did.
You could make alcohol.
Not that we ever did, but we got all that stuff. And it's like through me, we got lighters. You couldn't have lighters. But because I worked in reception, we got lighters, we got perfume, we got extra cigarettes, all that kind of stuff. We had the best greens. There was that kind of stuff going on. But so whatever Maggie Kirkpatrick played in Prisoner, that was Pat with us.
And it made a household name of people like Val Learman, who played B. Smith, and Colette Mann. God.
Yeah.
Sheila Florence. It was groundbreaking TV, and I just wanted to ask you if it was close to the truth.
Well, I suppose in some ways it was, but because of the dramatisation of it, it seemed like to me every time I saw any short of it, and over the years I've seen shorts of it, they make it really angry all the time. Like everybody's angry.
I would be.
Well, sometimes you got to kind of chill out.
Yeah, you have to.
Because your body's not going to handle it. That's number one. There's enough to be angry about without being angry at the people that you're in there with. So let's be angry about the screws. Let's be angry about the corruption in the court system. Let's be angry about the people that have put you there in the first place. Let's not be angry with each other, because that makes why are we even angry? We're both here together, you know?
I wanted to ask you about celebrity prisoners, because you were a bit of a celebrity because of your dad, and I get that. But how do you think, for example, someone like Erin Patterson, the mushroom murder, how do you think if she was in general population, how would she be treated, do you think?
She'll never get in general pop. There's no way. There's no way unless she requests it. There's no way she's going into gen pop. No way. That kind of crime, that's as bad as a child crime, what she did. And apparently I've heard that she's trying to make friends with all these people and cook stuff.
They were allowing her in the kitchen.
Who does that? You know what I mean? I'm like...
I couldn't believe it when I heard they allowed her to work in the kitchen.
I'm like,
Christ.
Really? And then there was another girl, and I saw it, and I don't know what jail she's in. Oh, Delwinia. She's in Delwinia. I had a thing on TikTok about it. The Italian girl who beheaded a mother and went to the next door neighbours, and they're letting her out. They're thinking of letting her out. But she beheaded a mother and took the head to the next door neighbours. Well, she's been trying to scalp people because she's in general population. And I was saying on TikTok, why you got these people who are so out there? She should be in, we used to have a wing called Rose Scott, which was closed down by the United Nations because of the conditions, which was the mentally unstable wing, right? She should be in a wing like that. But our Rose Scott was so bad that they closed it down. That's how bad it was.
You're referring to Jessica Camilleri.
Is it? That's her name? I don't know.
Yeah, she was found guilty of the manslaughter of her mother, Rita, back in 2019. She stabbed her mother more than 100 times and then decapitated her, as you said, and she carried the head...
to the next door neighbours.
...onto the street and dropped it in her neighbour's front yard. It's frightening stuff, isn't it?
She tried to scalp somebody about a couple of weeks ago. This Asian girl, you don't see her face, but she's got really nice long, brunette hair, Asian hair, and she tried to scalp her. I'm like... what is this woman even doing near people?
I don't know.
It's only 2019. That's only 6 years. You've only been in jail 6 years. In my day, you did that kind of crime, you were in Segro for 10. You weren't around people at all.
I know this and you know this, but contraband is rife in all our prisons, no matter what the security. Maybe not Goulburn, Supermax, I don't know. But back when you were in prison, was there much contraband, and how did it get in?
Well, contraband got in through me a lot of times.
Oh, really? What happened? Tell me about
because
that.
I worked in reception.
At the reception.
So we couldn't have perfume, and we couldn't have lighters, and we couldn't have, I don't know, what else would they bring in? Pens, because what happened is a lot of them were, say, South American mules, right? And they'd come in with their suitcases, and those suitcases were going to be in there for 20 years. And what Leanne, who was the other girl, and I used to do, our job was to go through the suitcase and tick off everything that was in there, And with the junkies, we would get pinpricked by their needles, whereas with the South American mules, we would get new perfumes or cartons of cigarettes or lighters, stuff like that. And so over a period of time, obviously not when they first walked in the door, but once they were charged and weren't getting bail, Leanne and I would go back to their suitcases, and we had hundreds of suitcases and bags in this area of reception, and we'd go back to the ones that had that stuff in it and take out, say they had 2 perfumes, we'd take out 1 perfume, or we'd take out a half a packet, like the carton, a half a carton of cigarettes, stuff them down our bra and take them back down to the wing. It's just how it got in.
What about drugs?
No, I didn't. The only way that drugs got in that I knew of was when my father came in for visits and everybody was kissing everybody. But drugs got in all the time, like all the time through visits.
So it was a visitor that would bring it in.
Yeah. And the screws are just so, bored, they're just there for the money. They're not there for the protection of anybody. They're quite easily done.
And where there's a will, there's a way. And as John O'Shea told me at Lithgow Jail, he said these prisoners have nothing but time
to figure out ways.
To think, to figure out ways. And where there's a will, there's a way.
Right. Exactly right. It's like now it just amazes me that they've got mobile phones. I'm like, how are you getting a mobile phone in there?
How do you get a mobile phone into a jail?
No clue. I have no clue. But that's rife. That's really rife. I have a friend whose ex-husband is in jail in Lebanon for 6 years. Long story, idiot. Went back to Lebanon to a warrant that wanted him to be arrested because he was the guy who was going to be shot. They tried to shoot him at Kirribilli and missed when they shot at a car about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got 2 months and then got out, and then they charged him with something else and he got 6 years. But he calls his son all the time on his mobile phone. Seriously.
I know. I've been in as part of media into 3 jails, AMC in Canberra, Bathurst and Lithgow, and particularly Lithgow and AMC, which is a fairly modern jail. We had to go through metal detectors, X-ray machines, kind of like at the airport, a physical frisk and sniffer dogs.
Yeah, no, none of that.
And I say to myself, how does contraband get in? Jesus.
Yeah, we had none of that. You walked through, and if you were going to see... So my grandmother would never get checked with that kind of stuff, neither would my father. But if you were going to see somebody who was a known drug addict or something like that, you went through a much more strict...
processing, yeah.
They just had pat-downs. They didn't have, the things you walk, like the TSA you walk through and all that kind of stuff. We never had that.
Yeah, the times have changed. And yet, maybe in some regards, they haven't. How do you feel, as an advocate for women in prison, how do you feel things are today?
Well, from what I hear, it hasn't really changed that much. I mean, because until you educate the screws on the fact that there are people in there who actually won't reoffend and stop treating them like children, like the way that now, although up here I find it I find it very frustrating. But I can see the new recruits of the police talking, because they put all the new recruits up here, right, to give them like the bad experience first. I see the new recruits trying to talk to the junkies, trying to talk to the homeless people. You know, this whole new kind of policing is going on. There's still the old way of policing, which is catching crooks, but the people who are walking around are actually trying to communicate with these people whose lives are the street, right? If they would do the same thing with the screws, there could be a change of mentality. But until you get through to screws who have a very low mentality, it's not going to happen.
Kerrin, tell me about the day you were released and your special song.
My special song was Everybody's Free to Feel Good by, I want to say Rosella. I think it is Rosella. But it was a song of the time, and I had a $700 Carlos and Patty suit on. I was picked up in a limousine, and a screw. About a week before, I was telling her what I hated this screw. I was telling her what I was going to wear and everything, and I had this hat or something like that. And she said, "Oh no," I was being picked up in a limousine. And she said, "Yeah, we had one girl here who was picked up in a limousine once before." And she said, "But she had class." And I said, "What, unlike you?" And just left it at that. You know.
Wow.
Just to the last minute, they'll just try to put it down.
Yeah, everybody's free to feel good. You're quite correct. It was Rosella. She was born in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I knew she was black. I didn't know where she was born.
See, I don't know if for copyright Kelsey's allowed to insert that song, but if we're not allowed to, have a listen to it. Everybody's Free to Feel Good by Rosella, spelled Rosalla. And it was released, gee whiz, 1991. So it was released while you were in jail.
Right. And then I just made a tape of it and put it on, I taped the same song like 20 times till the tape ran
You put
out.
on loop. Yeah.
And because in those days you put it in the tape in the thing.
Yeah, the cassette machine,
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the millennials and people younger than that today, Kerrin, won't understand the importance of a pencil and the winding of a...
they don't.
No idea. No. Tell me, when you were released and you've listened to your song on loop, what was your first meal?
My first meal was actually at the Foresters restaurant, where I ended up managing not long after because a friend of mine was the licensee.
Where's that?
On the corner of Riley and Favreau Street in Surrey Hills.
Surrey Hills, all right.
So my first meal was with 20 other people, friends, who came, and John and Vinny, who I'm still friends with today. Whatever, we had a choice, chickens.
What did you have?
I can't remember.
Oh, you're kidding.
Because I got too drunk. But what I do remember is we went from the jail, we went to Key West Apartments.
Yeah, down Circular Quay.
We'd rented a 2-bedroom apartment. Mark and Paul, a gay couple that came out with Chris, my husband, to pick me up. We stayed at the Key West Apartments overlooking the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. And then when we went from there, we went to the Foresters. Well, then we came home, everybody went home, we came home, went to bed, and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and this is what I remember. And I made myself a double Cointreau on the rocks, and I sat looking at the sunrise, crying my eyes out, because I remember thinking it's done. It doesn't matter about the parole's nothing, but this is done. I don't have to deal with those people anymore. I don't have to deal with the politics. I don't have to deal with screws. I don't have to deal with anything. I just have to get on with life. And I cried my eyes out for about an hour.
And tell me, did you stop dealing?
No.
You're on parole and you're still dealing? Jesus, Kerrin. Weren't you afraid that the police were watching you with a hawk eye?
No, not really. Again, you think that you're not going to get caught. That you're going to, you've got to.
But you were caught.
I know that. But once you're caught, then you learn things, right? You learn different things. But once I got out, I only dealt for probably 6 months, maybe a year. And a totally different system, totally different way of doing things. Ed was deported, so there was no ecstasy coming in, right? So I was dealing a different drug. And I just kind of got over it. You know what I mean? It was just like I knew the risks I was taking again and that something would happen again if I didn't stop. And so I just stopped and I never kind of went back to doing it. But I did, you think you know everything when you first get out. I must say that when I first got out, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like I got out and went, okay, now let's start doing it. It was like 6 months later or something like that an offer came up that I couldn't refuse. So I did it for about 6 months and then I just went, no, that's enough. I've done it. And I went on to doing what I do now.
What industry is that? Tell us more about what you're doing now.
Well, I'm retired now, but what I was in and what I still have a hand in with social media is the sex industry. So I was in the sex industry working as a sex worker in the bondage and discipline area for a long time. And now, not now, but my last job, physical job, I was a receptionist in either a massage parlour or a brothel. I went from one to the other, but I always stayed a long time in one job.
We can go on to that chapter in your life on another chat.
So come on down to the man cave where the good times roll and the tall tales play. Raise a laugh with Adam on the line.
Well, here we go with another man cave, and we have the vice captain, Adam McDonald, expert on memorabilia, with us in the left corner. In the right corner, the millennial, and me here in the middle, and there's a bit to talk about. The millennial vice captain is doing this via remote technology all the way from Tasmania, and you are in Canberra. So this is a national program, kind of.
It is. Whereabouts in Tassie are you?
40 minutes outside of Hobart.
Right. I did a bit of growing up in Tasmania, believe it or not.
Ah.
Yeah, I can tell.
So do you want to know my evaluation of Tasmania thus far?
Yeah,
Sure.
show us your map. No.
Okay.
This
is my assessment. My assessment is sheep, hills, roadkill.
Yeah. It's a beautiful
That's
place,
my
though.
assessment.
It's a beautiful place, though.
Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. I am genuinely blown away by how beautiful the landscape is.
Yeah, you go down the west coast of Tasmania. It's a hell of a drive. I did it on pickers. We flew in and then we got a truck down there and drove down the west coast. It's absolutely untouched wilderness. It's beautiful.
It's stunning. It is absolutely stunning. You drive anywhere and it's beautiful. I have yet to see, even on the dirt roads, like we were going through dirt roads, it's still stunning. I have yet to see, the houses sometimes are a bit crazy, but the landscape is...
Yeah.
Why? I've got a question for you, Adam.
Yeah.
Why? We've all been asking ourselves, it seems like a lot of the houses are very close to the roads. It's like usually our houses are like, a good couple meters back from the road, but at least where we've been driving around, it's like all of the houses are very close to the road.
I've got no answer for you there.
I don't know, but we noticed that. We were thinking, like, there's so much land here. Why wouldn't you set your house back like a couple meters?
They must have big backyards then.
They must, yeah. If anyone knows the answer, please let us know.
I remember when I was there, we used to joke about it because we used to move interstate all the time, being a military family. But I remember moving from Townsville to Tasmania, the whole family had like 2 jumpers between us because we didn't need them. But I remember reminiscing about it later on that just listening to the local news in Tasmania at the time, it's like Farmer Joe blows tractor motor on Highway 6.
Yeah.
People were held up for 20 minutes. And that was news. That was a news story for like 3 days in a row. Like there was nothing happening down there.
Yeah, that reminds
when I
me
first started on the Triple M network. When I first started on the Triple M network, I went into Tassie, and the FM station in Hobart had been rebranded Triple M, and the guy doing breakfast was Brian Carlton, an old mate of mine. They used to call him the Spoon Man. Does that ring a bell?
I know the name, yeah.
Yeah, Brian Carlton, and he was doing breakfast, and they were going to shoot a movie on that terrible tragedy. There was a lot of pushback from the locals saying, let's not glorify that. And I found out through Brian that there is an unwritten rule, but it's a very strict rule, that you do not, in the press, in any way, shape or form, newspapers, magazines, radio, television, you don't mention the name Martin, you know who I'm talking about.
Sure.
And he said, it's banned. You don't mention his name. I thought that was fascinating. He said, so just be careful when you chat to me on the air, don't mention his name.
There's a big conspiracy theory around about that, isn't there? But anyway, that's another story. It's another day.
Is there?
Yes, it's a thing.
Speaking of when we were on the Triple M network, I remember one morning I had you and Dr. Carl on debating the great conspiracy theory surrounding Neil Armstrong walking on the moon, 20th of July, 1969, because you always believed it was faked up in a studio and it never really happened. So I got Dr. Carl on, and he was very convincing, but yet he still couldn't convince you. However, you may have turned a corner on all of this. You've had a development this week. Take us through it.
I think I might have to eat sour grapes on this one. I had a gentleman come in last week and he said he had some moon landing memorabilia. I went through the boxes, and in that memorabilia were original photographic slides of Buzz, of Neil, that iconic picture of the flag on the moon. Like, these are legit slides. So I very rarely admit I was wrong, but I think I was wrong. I think I've got to get back on the We've Been There bandwagon. Like, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen come in this building. Like, their original slides, I can trace the gentleman's grandfather back to the mission, who he was working at Parks and Timbimbilla down here to help with the navigation. So he was gifted these slides. The whole history checks out. I was wrong. I was wrong.
I love a man that can admit when they're wrong, Adam. So
doesn't happen often.
I love it.
Doesn't happen often. But I want to know, okay, I watched it from a classroom at Eleanor Heights Primary School. We watched it on the telly, and we all knew exactly what was going on because we'd done project after school project on it in the lead up to it, so we were right across it. I still don't understand. So I'm in no doubt it happened, but how did they get... So the Eagle was the pod that landed. It was Apollo 11, but there was the Eagle that was the pod that came down. How did they get the car on? There's a four-wheel drive car that they drive around in, Adam.
Yeah.
How did they get that? That didn't fit in the pod.
And I was speaking to another fellow that came in. I was showing him the slides, and he's a big fan of the whole moon landing thing. And he said he went to a seminar where Buzz Aldrin was speaking, and Buzz said during his speech, he said the moon smells like charcoal. Jeez. It smells like It smells like burnt wood. And then this gentleman's sitting there and going, well, I don't believe you, because how can you smell it when you've got your spacesuit on?
Yeah.
And so he was sitting in the crowd going, well, this is all bullshit. My whole world's falling down. I'm crushed. I believed it. But then Buzz went on to explain, once they got back into Apollo and they took their suits off, they could smell this. They could smell this sort of charcoaly smell. So also in this collection of slides, there is an unidentified rock, which I'm hoping... I don't know what it is. I'm going to go over to Geoscience down here tomorrow and get them to check it out. But it could be part of a meteor, could be part of the moon. I don't know. But it's very exciting stuff.
That is so exciting.
2002, I think it was. I got to interview Buzz Aldrin, Edward Aldrin, the second man on the moon. And it was a fascinating chat. And I had it for years on a digital disc somewhere, and I've moved so many times I can't find it. But I wish I could find it for you, because it was a very, very interesting chat. You know, Buzz Aldrin once punched a bloke who suggested it was fake. Do you remember that, Kelsey? Have you seen that? Have you seen that video?
I haven't seen it. I've heard the story.
Oh, you'll find it on YouTube, Kelsey. Just type in on YouTube, Buzz Aldrin punches skeptic. That should do it. And he gets very fired up, doesn't he, Adam?
He does get fired up. I mean, he'd cop it all the time, wouldn't he? He'd just be copying left, right and centre from idiots like me just not believing.
Well, we'll post the photo that you sent to us, Adam, on the subscriber page so you can see it there.
Yeah.
But that is so exciting, though. It's crazy that these have come to you in Canberra, of all places, you know? Like, it's crazy that...
This is the thing, in the collection, because the guy came to me and said, this stuff's been sitting in a 40-foot shipping container on our farm at Yass for 60 years, however long it's been. Wow. So he said, I don't want to, we'll never use it, so we might as well put it out on the open market so people can enjoy it. So as I'm going through, there's lots of paperwork, there's lots of ephemera. As I'm going through it, there's correspondence between, the gentleman's name was Frederick Hardy, and he was the astrophysicist that were looking after it. But there's correspondence between Frederick and his wife, I think her name was Gertrude, that Gertrude has saved and put it in a leather binder, and this is when he was overseas, and every single letter, he wrote to her once a week, every single letter, "Dear Gertrude, I love you so much. Dear Gertrude, you're the most beautiful woman in the world." And it is so sweet. It's disgusting. But every single letter, and she's kept it. So I've called the vendor and I said, you know what? You need to keep this. Do not sell this. And so he's going to come in today. He's going to pick it up and keep it. But it is so sweet, the love between his grandmother and his grandfather.
I love that story.
It's one of the better things about my job is finding these little things and family history and I think he was stationed in London at the time and she was down here in Yass.
Okay.
That's crazy. Two worlds colliding.
And it's a thing. It's like everything was sent by airmail, and you used to go to the post office and get airmail envelopes. So you'd literally open the envelope right on the inside of the envelope, then fold it back up. So this whole folio is full of those little blue folders with folded papers.
Par Avon. Kelsey,
that's it.
Back in the day, airmail, well, it had to be as light as possible, obviously. And people were discouraged from writing letters that were pages and pages long. So the envelope, Kelsey, actually was the page you wrote on, and it folded out the 3 sections. Then you'd write, you had to keep it brief because that's all the room you had. You folded it back up, licked the back, and that was the envelope as well. So that was what airmail, Par Avon from memory, Adam.
That's right. That's exactly what it was.
And it was as light as tissue paper, Kelsey. And, that's the way you wrote to people overseas if you were on a very, very strict budget because it was as light as possible. And it was called airmail. It was light blue.
You should have put that in Muddle the Millennial, Luke.
No, there's going to be another episode next week. I've got better questions.
Okay.
I've got better questions. Vice Captain, before the end of today's Man Cave, because there's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you and Kelsey about today of great importance. But you know how I'm a Thunderbirds man?
Yes.
Well, I'm also a fan of a particular TV show. Now, most people I know, sounds like a Billy Thorpe song, most people I know are Star Trek fanatics. Not me. I went the other way. I went Lost in Space. And there's something I want you to find for me. Can we talk about it a bit later?
Absolutely. I think I've already found it.
Ooh.
Well, in the words of you
He's
two,
good at his job,
I still
Luke.
haven't found what I'm looking for. But we'll talk about it in a minute. We'll keep people... I wonder if you can guess what I'm after. It's something I need in my man cave. I've got Thunderbird 2. Underneath it is Thunderbird 4. But there's something missing. We'll get to that a little bit later. Now, the news that's absolutely dominating the world at the moment is the artist formerly known as Prince. And we're talking about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who history was broken last Friday when we woke up to the news that he'd actually been arrested. Not charged, but arrested. Imagine the indignity of this entitled punce of an ex-prince being put in a squad car, put in a holding cell, having his shoelaces removed and being treated like a commoner. Now, there's more to come out of all of this. He wasn't even questioned, to our knowledge, about possible sex trafficking, which I'm sure is down the line. They're talking about the Epstein files, all 3 million pages of them, which seriously now implicates Andrew on something that we've all known for a long time, and that is when he was a trade envoy to the British government, paid by the taxpayer, that he underwent deals that concerned himself, and now we find out the accusation is that he was delivering top secret trade information to people, including Jeffrey Epstein. That, if he's found guilty, which is treason, it carries a sentence of life. The maximum sentence is life. Now, there's more to come to this, and I thought it was a very interesting strategy that they chose to arrest him on his 66th birthday. Not the day before, not the day after, on his birthday. And I think there's an interesting strategy here. They obviously have warrants now. They were able to get access to his laptop, his phone, his tablet. They have access to what's up in the cloud. He's in a lot of trouble. But the sex trafficking is yet to be answerable. He's been asked to give evidence in Congress. I'm not sure whether or not he's had his passport taken off him, but there's no way in the world he'll go there. But here's the thing. That Andrew Lowney book, entitled, is so aptly named, unbelievably entitled. He was called the Royal C word by his staff. He was that difficult, absolutely that difficult. And I just that photo of him in the car on the way back after being released from questioning is the Time magazine photo of the century.
Yeah.
And so that'll do the rounds. But here's the point. Andrew had been enabled to get away with shit for many, many, many years now by the royal firm. That's what they call it. And that includes his late mother, God bless her. And Andrew apparently was her favourite, but also his brother, the now king. And I think that this is the make or break of the royal family. And in my opinion, the way for them to start again and bring back trust to the British Empire, and we are part of it, we are part of the Commonwealth, to bring back the lost trust in the royal family that has lost now, is for the king to abdicate, let William become king with Kate, and start all over again. Your thoughts?
I don't think Charlie should have to tap out. He hasn't done anything wrong. Just because he's got a gumboot of a brother. I almost think it's probably going to be a bit more stoic if he stands tall and continues on and just admits who his brother is and what his brother's done and face the public full on. I think advocating might look a bit weak and say, well, I don't want to do this, I'm going to give it to someone else. But I mean, that photo is just unbelievable. And I think that the word entitled is so apt because these people in power and these positions have been doing shit like this behind closed doors forever. You know, and it's about time that someone's been called out and now everyone's going to shit themselves. Like those Epstein files, they could go anywhere. And no one knows what's in them, who's in it. You know, it seems like everyone in Hollywood's been labelled like it's like this secret society that's not so secret anymore. And I think everyone who's in there should face the full force of the law and suck eggs, to be honest, because it's that entitlement is just absolute horseshit.
Yeah, just because it's in the Epstein files doesn't mean anything can be proven in court. It will give people plenty of leads. And the other thing, Kelsey, because I know you love doing research, we, the public and the rest of the world, we actually don't know what would be redacted from all of that. There are some things that they'll say that are of national security that they won't release. So we probably never, Kelsey, will know the full content.
Well, there's a lot of criticism. I mean, there's a lot of criticism towards the Trump government anyway, but particularly when it comes to the Epstein files, because they have done a terrible job at redacting victims' names. They've done a terrible job you can tell that they've done this, Luke, on a computer. You can do this thing where you do Command F, which is Command Find, and you type in a word, right? So like, let's just say I type in a word, don't, right?
Yeah.
And it will show you every single every single place in that file where that word pops up. And you can tell that they've just done a Command F on the files because they've redacted words that also don't need to be redacted. So we know that they are just kind of going through and doing a blanket redaction on words like literally like don't, because they're redacted in places where they actually don't need to be redacted, and you can pretty easily guess what they are. But also in some of these redactions, they haven't redacted them properly. So all it takes is a control, copy and paste into a file, and then you can remove the redactions yourself. So it's all been very messy, and there's lots of people that are saying that they've actually done this on purpose to cause a lot of confusion, to cause a lot of questioning. But I do think that we will, and who knows when that will be. It might be another, 6 years of Trump in office. Who knows? But when the next party takes control, I think at some point we will get the full files that are properly redacted, and we can get more information.
It won't be 6 years, Kelsey. Yeah. In the Constitution, he's only allowed to run for 2 terms. But I
know, but he's trying to change that though, which is why I say who knows.
Donald Trump, Constitution, Smonstitution. Yeah. Just one more thing that Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife, what a grubby piece of work she is. Money hungry, entitled. And I mean, fancy taking your 2 young daughters to visit Epstein when he was released from jail. He's now vice captain, a convicted pedophile, and she goes and takes her daughters to visit him. She refers to him as the brother I always wished for. In one email, she pleads, "Oh, just marry me." And then she actually says, she refers to her daughter Eugenie being off on a shagging weekend. She actually used that term to Epstein in an email referring to her own daughter.
How old's the daughter?
Well, they're both now in their 20s with children. But she was, I think, 19 at the time.
I think she was like 19 at the time, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just beggars belief. We all know Andrew completely lied in that News World BBC interview because we now...
I don't sweat.
Yeah, she's sweating now. He actually did contact Epstein after he was sent to jail many, many times.
Yeah.
Oh, and who flies across the Atlantic from London to New York to break off a friendship with someone? Then they're seen walking in Central Park. And then there's those photos of Andrew on the floor on all fours, leaning over the body of a young woman, it appears. What the hell? There's more to come.
There's lots.
I just think the royal family is completely tainted because they've allowed Andrew's entitled behaviour to go on for so long. I think start again. I think turn it off at the power, reboot, and let William take over.
I got to say, I'm on Adam's side here. I think Charles wouldn't have gotten much say over what his mum did when she was in power. And I do think, though, the only way for Charles to regain or at least keep the respect is he has to do something about Andrew. If we don't see consequences from Andrew, then yes, Charles should absolutely abdicate. But I think this is a very good opportunity for Charles, and I think he's going to take it because this is an opportunity for him to show his constituents, I am the king that you need, and I think he will take it. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, why don't we ask our listeners what they think so far? Please leave us a message, lukebonaradioguy@gmail.com. Please leave us a voice message, 0291289311. I'm saying out, go, reset the royal family and start again. Kelsey and Adam?
Surely the whole royal family knew what Andrew's like. It's not as if they wouldn't have known that he's hanging out with this grub Epstein and he's hanging out on islands and as if you can't tell me they didn't know. And they've just it's like the weird uncle, that comes over once a year for Christmas, and they all just don't. No one mention Andrew, and that's all it would be. Now they've been caught out, and they've been literally caught with his pants down. They're going to have to cop it, and Charlie's just going to have to say, "Yes, my brother's a grub. We need to move forward."
And he's on the taxpayer coin, Adam, when he's a trading boy, and he's selling / leaking highly delicate, confidential trade documents that could benefit other people and himself. But while he's doing that and travelling the world, he's racking up hundreds of thousands of pounds in bills that were unnecessary, including massages. including instead of staying at embassies, staying in 6-star hotels, all on the British taxpayer's coin. It's theft.
It stinks.
What a dum-dum. Just what a dum-dum.
He's not bright, is he?
No, he's not. He's an idiot. But that's what happens when you think you can get away with anything, I guess.
It's what happens when you win breed for hundreds of years.
Exactly right.
Are you with me? Speaking of Tasmania, Kelsey's with us.
Hey.
Oh, sorry. I'm only joking. But I do think Andrew has had the operation so that he can wear thongs. I do. I got a funny feeling. I've got something to bring up with you, and I want to know your advice. The Minister for War and Finance has had to go to bowls. She couldn't be part of this discussion because I really wanted her to. So I'm going to not put any mayo on this story, Kelsey. I'm going to tell you exactly what has happened. Are you ready, Adam?
Yep, ready.
Once a month, the minister and 4 or 5 good friends go down to the local RSL for a trivia night. And the last 3 weeks, there's been a group of girls who always sit in the table up the back in a corner, and they always win or come second. And they are answering questions that you would assume that someone between the age of 21 and 26 would struggle to answer. So maybe their general knowledge is just fantastic. However, 2 trivia nights ago, Nikki was in a position where she looked around and one of the girls had her phone in her lap and was tapping away on it. Now, there's a gentleman's agreement that all phones are put back in your bag or face down on the table. A strict rule, no phones. And yet last week, when was it, Tuesday, they came second again, and that girl again was looking down at her phone in her lap under the table, and they again chose to sit at the table right at the back in the corner. Nikki was so angry because she hates cheating. So she was going to call it out. And the other people at her table said, don't make a fuss. I would have gone berserk. Was Nikki right to just hold her tongue and keep quiet, or should she have said something to an official? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I go to trivia once a week. I go to a pub down here called Walsh's. We've got a team of a couple of workmates, a couple of other people from around the neighbourhood, and it is a gentleman's agreement. But what a shallow victory that would be by winning the local pub trivia by cheating. I can understand if you're winning $1 million, but what's the prize? I think the prize down here at Walsh's, you get a $60 bar voucher. So to have that.
I think it's a $50 or $60 bar voucher. I think that's it.
Yeah, isn't that just such a hollow victory? Like, how shallow do you have to be to cheat to win $50? Like, who cares?
It's just not fun either.
No, it takes the whole fun out of it. Exactly right.
Yeah, but there's one of Nikki's best friends, one of her oldest friends is Bess. We only need a first name. You know Bess, Kelsey.
Oh, yeah.
And she's fiery and she's Scottish. And she's a fiery person. And even Bess said, just don't worry about it. Don't say anything. Kelsey, I would have thought Bess would fire up as well. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to keep my mouth shut. But Mum also said that she's kind of perceived that this, group of young people is friends with the host of the trivia night because of the way that they interact. So Mum was kind of like, there's probably not even a point of saying anything because they're all friendly deadly. But I think, when Mum and her group of friends frequent this pub all the time, the RSL club all the time, they're the ones that do deserve to get that, $60 bar voucher. They'll actually put it to good use.
Yeah,
I would be livid.
Your mum even represents the club in bowls.
I would be livid. I would be saying,
I would have said something.
I told Mum I would go to the manager above the trivia night host and go to them, someone that is above them, and say, hey, just so you know, we saw this group of people using their phone and we don't think it's fair. Well, you don't need to make a fuss out of it, but you should say something.
Well, your mum has a plan. Adam, Nikki's table's plan is they're going to get there early next time and get these girls that get their table. So that they're forced to sit in the middle of the room surrounded by everybody. That's their plan.
and then watch them come
That's
last. It's an interesting thing doing stuff like that, like taking someone's spot. When Wonder Boy was little, I lived out in West Ryde and I used to have to catch the train to work. And people are such creatures of habit where everyone would get to the train station at the same time and stand in the same spot. So what I would do, just because I'm a prick, I would go and get there 2 minutes early and stand where someone stands every day. And these people would get there and they literally wouldn't know what to do. Like, they're just like, oh, what do I do? Like, where do I stand? They'd get all fidgety. I thought it was hilarious. But, people are massive creatures of habit.
Have you ever caught someone cheating? It's something that's supposed to be a bit of social fun. Would you have dobbed these girls in, folks? Or would you have kept quiet to avoid a fuss? I would have said something, especially if if I was 3 schooners in. Can you imagine?
Oh, I
Yeah.
can imagine.
Adam, I've got to know, what's the name of your trivia group team?
The guy, my colleague who organises everyone and sort of gets us all together, his nickname's Barbie. And so we're called Barbie's Tools.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Barbie Girls.
No, Barbie's Tools.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very, very good. Okay, I want some feedback on this.
The other thing with trivia, it's not unfair, but I think we have a team of 6, but there's other teams that have like 12 people on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it's not cheating, but it is a bit unfair when you've got double the amount of people.
Brains.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do love trivia, though. I'm pretty useless at it, but I do love it.
We go all right. Because we've got people from all walks of life. Like Barbie's good at music.
Yeah.
I'm good at sports. We've got a couple of real estate agents. I think there's a lawyer. So we cover the spread. It's good.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, we'll get some feedback on this. Now, Kelsey, we've got a voice message from Nathan.
Yes, and this is in response to the chat we had last week. So let's hear this.
Yeah, guys, it's Nathan here. Yeah, look, I'm with Jason and you, Luke. And also you, Kelsey. It's 4 ways, I guess. You can't paint them with the same brush, but let them move in next door to you. And the next time you have, Australia Day barbecue and that in the local park, and you're cooking up, lamb or ham and stuff like that, and they come over and tell you to stop cooking it because that's against their religion, and then they force a form through the local council to have you. You can't have these celebrations no more. Can't say Merry Christmas because that offends their religion. There was that story going back a while ago that they banned serving ham and cheese sandwiches in schools because, that hurt, that's ham, that's against their religion, they can't have ham. Well, they can eat it. It's as simple as that. Don't, ban it in the schools because that's against your religion. That's not our religion.
Well,
Jesus.
Tell us what you really think, Nathan.
Yeah. Vice Captain?
Look, I challenge anyone, Jason, Nathan, go out to Lakemba, right? You go out to Lakemba during Ramadan. And during Ramadan, the Muslims, they don't eat during the day. They can only eat after dark. And what happens in Lakemba is everyone comes out in the front of their house with their barbecues, their tables, and they cook. And anyone from any walk of life can walk down that street and you will get one of the best feeds ever. And all this shit that, who's going to go up to someone in a park and say you can't cook bacon on a barbecue? Has that even ever happened?
Yeah. I doubt it. I doubt it too.
I doubt it. It's just painting people with one brush. I challenge them, go out to Lakemba during Ramadan and you'll see what these people are like. Yes, there are some bad apples in that bunch, but there's bad apples in our bunch too. I just think it's ridiculous. I think that whole conversation last week, I sat on my hands and kept quiet, but I'm happy to take it up another time.
I'll tell you a story, both of you. When I was on 2GB many, many years ago, we were getting reports from listeners saying, there's a big shopping centre, it's southwest of Sydney. I don't need to name it. It was in a heavily Muslim populated area. And guess what? They've banned Christmas carols and they've banned Santa because it's offensive. And the phone calls were coming through, and of course the Telegraph picked up on it and ran with it. So I rang centre management of the shopping centre. I said, "Is it true?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Why? What complaints have you had?" They said, "None. We stopped the Christmas carols in anticipation of offending people." There wasn't one
Jesus
complaint.
Christ.
They made it up. They made it up. And I was getting phone calls from people of the Islamic faith saying, we don't care about Christmas carols. In fact, we own shops. And if you play the Christmas carols, it encourages people to shop and
People
spend.
to come in, yeah.
Yeah. They said, we've never heard of anything so ridiculous. It was centre management, Adam and Kelsey, that cut the carols, and they did it without one complaint.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's it, right?
I mean, that's where society's at the moment. I better cancel it just in case something happens. Like, it's ridiculous.
It is. Kelsey, we got a voice message from Salty.
Yes, we did. But before we play this, Luke, I think you need to explain to Adam what your new segment idea is.
This is right up Adam's lane. Adam, do you remember that? Do you remember that fantastic television show that was on? I think it was on Channel 7. It was hosted by Peter Luck. It was called This Fabulous Century. And it was a flashback from 1901 right up until whenever the show was made, 1978, I think, 79. The footage was fabulous, if you'll pardon the pun. And it was a snapshot of how Australia has grown. I'd like to do something similar on our podcast. But going back to 1901, there aren't any Australians left of that age, but Kelsey's grandparents were born in 1937 and 1938. So I thought we could go back to, let's say, World War II and just talk about the Australia that they grew up in and how it's changed. And then we could ask people from different eras, people who remember the Vietnam War, people who remember the corner store, people who remember having chickens in their backyard, people who remember getting the cane at school, the lunar landing. I mean, it's all a snapshot that makes up who Australia and what Australia is today. So we can do it in segments, but we can also talk about the toys that we play with throughout the ages, how they've developed. You know, it's the music we listened to, the movies we watched, the TV shows we watched, the radio programs we listened to. And I thought we could call it The Way We Were, but that's only a name, a work in progress. I'm up for other suggestions. What do you think, Adam?
I think it's a great idea. This is right up my alley because I live and breathe nostalgia. You know, that's what I'm selling down here out of my auction rooms. I love it. The history behind things, the emotions that you feel when you see something that you think, shit, I grew up with that. I remember doing that. I remember, you know, I had one of those cricket bats I used to play in the backyard with Dad, all that sort of stuff. I mean, this is my game.
Who were your sports heroes growing up? Were you like me and Nikki? You could go and do anything you wanted so long as you were out of the house after school, but you had to be back when the street lights went on. I got the cane at school, and people will think, how draconian is that? Well, it really wasn't that long ago. You respected your teachers. You feared your teachers. You were scared stiff of your parents. Well, every kid my age got hit with a wooden spoon. But we made tree houses, which councils now ban because they're unsafe. We had playground equipment that would be banned today because it's deemed unsafe. There's a different era for every Australian. And I thought, why don't we do a snapshot of what it was like to grow up in Australia during your period? And we'll go right from World War II through until now. Kelsey's got a completely different story to you, Adam.
That's
and
right.
I might have a different story to you. I had a fascinating chat with Kelsey's grandparents, her nanny and Granny and Poppy, and they grew up in Perth. And it's just wonderful stuff. And they came from two very different backgrounds. Kelsey's granny was very, very wealthy. Her father was the Commodore of the Perth Yacht Club, can you believe it? And a very, very well-to-do dentist. Poppy, Nikki's dad, other side of the tracks, very modest upbringing, arse hanging out of your shoes and your socks, and went on to become one of the youngest accountants to ever practice in Australia. I mean, he's an absolute amazing
Genius.
bloke. He is a genius. He is, and he's quietly spoken, and I love them both. So their story is interesting. My dad has passed away. He was born in 1927, so he'd be 98 now. And I remember growing up with Mum and Dad's stories about the Depression and rationing and not being able to buy stockings or sugar. Little kids with a shopping list could go down to the corner store and buy Mum and Dad's cigarettes. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
This is interesting. One of my first jobs was delivering pharmaceutical drugs from the chemist to the local retirement homes.
What?
That was my job. I'd get this, fill up my backpack with like Xanax and all these sort of drugs, and I would literally go down.
Oh my God.
And I did it on a Tuesday and a Thursday after school, and I tell you what, I was the centre of the universe at those retirement villages. Everyone's here comes Adam. We're gonna ease the pain, and that was literally my first job, was delivering pharmaceutical drugs.
Wow. And I remember
You would
going
never
with
be able to do that today.
I remember going to the shop with Mum's shopping list. It was a fairly long walk, but it got me out of the house. And I did have to buy cigarettes. And also on the shopping list, I had to go to the bottle shop and get cooking brandy. I had to get a bottle, and it was written in Mum's handwriting on the note. The guy sold it to me. I would have been 10. So times have really changed. But we could talk about movies and the cost of things when we were growing up. The toys we played with before computers came about. Back in the day when there was only one television, if you were rich, per household. One. And it was before television, Nikki's parents were telling me they sat in the lounge room and watched The Wireless and listened to Dad and Dave and The Lone Ranger and The Shadow and radio serials, which were on at prime time. They were on at 7 o'clock through until 11. This is before. So look, there are interesting stories out there, and if you've got an interesting story, we'll wait till we get this on its feet. Vice Captain, I'd love you to be part of it. And
yeah, absolutely.
Why don't we? And my working title is The Way We Were, but I'm happy for a better title to come along. So that's where we come to now with our voice message from Salty.
Let's have a listen.
Yeah, g'day, Luke. Kelsey, going. Just the name your segment name. It's Salty here from Queensland. I was just thinking maybe you could go along the lines of like the mirror reflecting on Australia, something like that. Bit of food for thought, but yeah, cheers.
I love it. Please keep them coming. And I tell you what, we'll do this in a democratic way. Kelsey and Adam, the three of us can choose on a title, and my choice will win. No, I'm only joking. I'd be hopeless in a democracy. I could only cope with being a dictator. No, we'll open it up, and the winning. I still like The Way We Were, but I'm in love with Barbra Streisand. Let's come up with a name. Kelsey will have to produce up a few of these things. Adam, you can be our expert as well. And why don't we take a little trip down memory lane on a regular basis here on the podcast? Are you with me?
With you.
We're with ya.
Now, Adam, do you like fishing?
Not overly, no.
I do, and I haven't been fishing for a long time. Kelsey, your Poppy loves fishing, and he used to make his own rods out of bamboo, and he loved beach fishing. I went beach fishing with your Poppy once. I do love it, but there's a professional protester by the name of Tash Peterson. Google the name. She's everywhere. She's the person that breaks into steakhouses, Adam, and shames people out of eating what they're eating. She throws blood on people, you know. Anyway, she's down at Bondi, and she's got an offsider with her, filming her on a phone. And there's a father and a son, and they've got their rods in the sand, and they're fishing. And she marches up lecturing them about how cruel fishing is, and she actually takes their rods out of the sand and dumps them. And she's being egged on by this bloke on the phone saying, there's another rod there, get that one, get that one. Kelsey can post this. It's the audio's not that great, but have you seen the video?
I have seen the video. That opening statement that you said, she's a professional protester, just sums her up. Like, she's just a professional whinger, just wants to upset everyone and cause all this carnage and chaos to keep her socials alive. Like, I got absolutely no time for nitwits like this.
Here's the question though, Kelsey. Is catching a fish on a hook through its mouth, is that cruel?
I don't think so. I personally don't like fishing. Yeah, well, I personally don't like fishing because I get sad for the fish. But that doesn't mean I want to stop other people from fishing. I think if you're going to eat fish, probably fishing is the best way to do so because, you know, it's sustainable. It's one person catching their own fish.
Yeah.
You know, fish is good for you. But I just think these people are just shooting themselves in the foot here. Like, I am for animal rights. I'm for all of that stuff. But when people do these kind of, it's almost like a performance. They're shooting themselves in the foot because it makes people go, that's not right. I'm going to eat fish in spite of you. I'm going to go fishing in spite of you. And if they really cared about their mission and their goals, they wouldn't be going about it in this way. Particularly, I can understand, when these activists go to large corporate fisheries and, maybe cause a bit of havoc there. I can understand that because, you're fighting the man or whatever. But a father and son fishing on a beach, they are not the enemy here. And I just think they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing this type of thing. It's mind-boggling.
Well, I got to tell you, in New South Wales, it's illegal to fish without a fishing licence, and they're not expensive. But that money goes towards restocking our waterways with depleted species. That money goes into preserving waterways and making the waterways healthier. The money from the fishing licence actually goes to a pretty good cause. That's what the government tells you. So there is an old saying, though, Adam, and that is, if fish could scream, would people still fish?
Yes, they would.
I think they would.
Yeah. I mean,
I think they would.
If this father and son are going down to, I'm gathering it was in the eastern suburbs, wouldn't it? She wouldn't be anywhere else.
Bondi. I thought I mentioned it was Bondi. Yeah.
Yeah, of course she lives in the eastern suburbs. If you're going to fish and you catch that fish, you go home and you eat that fish, I've got absolutely no issue with it. And I'd be on her about stealing my stuff. Like, don't touch my stuff.
Yeah, file a police report. Yeah, it's all a bit silly. And I just don't think it does anything.
It worked. We're talking about her. She's back in the game. Everybody knows who she is. It's worked.
But it also hasn't worked because people are outraged at it. It's kind of done a disservice to their mission. No one's actually listening to what she's saying. They're outraged by her actions, Yeah.
Let's get feedback from our listeners. lukebonaradioguy@gmail.com, 02 91 28 9311. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Is fishing cruel? Here's one for you. You two guys, I noticed at Coles the other day, when I'm paying for my goods at the checkout, the operator said, would you like to make a $2 donation to something? And I forget what it was. And a lot of people feel shamed into saying, yeah, okay, why not? Even if they don't want to. And here's a story of a customer at a restaurant. And they were looking at the bill. It was a popular Melbourne restaurant, Chin Chin. And the diner has gone on social media sharing a photo of the receipt. On the receipt, it says $1 by $1 donation. So what happened was the restaurant has made a $1 donation to something or other without asking the diner first. Is that right?
Hey, that's theft. That's straight up theft. But I find it interesting, these donation schemes that these big corporations have. Like Woolies run one where when you pay your bill, when you pay for your groceries, it says, would you like to round up
a
couple of cents, and it goes to OzHarvest or one of these big charities. So essentially what happens is all that money gets donated to the charity, and then Woolworths claim it all back on tax. And it's just a massive tax. It's just a massive tax fraud. And so all those millions of dollars that the general public donate just goes back into the Woolies' pocket.
See, this is why I support Wounded Heroes, because 100% all the money goes back into Wounded Heroes looking after people. A lot of the huge charities, about 90% of your donation, that's 90 cents of every dollar, goes into administration and advertising and wages.
Well, it is a little bit of a misconception that they get a tax break from doing this. There's only really one exception to this, and that's when they do like a match giving campaign where they, agree to match every dollar the customer gives, but the company can still only claim a deduction on the portion they personally donated. So it is a little bit of a misconception that it is a tax write-off. They mainly do it for, public relations and brand images, increase sales. Like there have been studies that have suggested that customers who feel a warm glow from giving are more likely to return to that retailer. And it's, free philanthropy. It enables retailers to raise large sums for charities without using their own capital. So they're still gaining something from it, but it's not usually a tax deduction. But in this particular case, you can't force that on somebody. It has to be a choice.
Yeah, but do they have a right to ask you?
See,
it can make a lot of people feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think like put it on like a little tick box on your check or something, but I think it makes everybody feel a bit uncomfortable. If someone's looking you in the eye and saying, do you want to donate? You feel like a bad person if you say no, but I've actually gotten used to saying no now. So
yeah, if I wanted to donate, I'd donate directly to whoever I wanted to donate to. I don't need you to
Wounded Heroes.
Yeah,
Wounded
I
Heroes.
don't need you to help me or ask me what it is.
Yeah.
Is it a bit like when you go to pay at a restaurant and they and before you tap your card, because no one carries cash anymore, you can tip 15%, 20% or whatever, and they give you three choices. Is that rude?
If they ask you.
It's so
It's awkward, isn't it?
It is awkward.
It's so awkward, but we're not a tipping culture here in Australia, so I think that's why it makes us feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't mind giving a tip when the service has actually been genuinely great, but it annoys me when, they ask for it when it's been a terrible service, because it's like, in what God's green earth do you think this deserves a tip?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Once again, we're after your feedback. Now, listen, Adam, you've got to go in a second, but I need your help with something. I mentioned at the beginning of our chat that I kind of went against the grain when it came to science fiction for my age group. Nearly everybody I knew was absolutely obsessed with Star Trek. And the Trekkies, Adam, you would know this, they're a funny mob. The Trekkies are an absolute funny mob. So I guess two other Star Wars people. But anyway, I was absolutely obsessed with Lost in Space when I was a kid. And I've seen every episode. I saw the movies, but I loved the TV series. June Lockhart was in it. The wonderful Jonathan Harris, Dr. Smith. Guy Williams, who was Zorro, was John Robinson. And if anyone has seen The Sound of Music, you recognise the wonderful Angela Cartwright, who was one of the Von Trapp kids. She was also in it. Billy Mooney was in it, who's now a musician. But anyway, Lost in Space. Now, Vice Captain, I desperately need the robot. The robot from Lost in Space. I don't want Robbie the robot. I don't want a Dalek. I hated Doctor Who. I would love a decent Lost in Space robot for my man cave. Can you help me?
I think I've got one here, to be honest. Did I send you a photo yesterday?
Oh!
Have you? I thought that was just taken off the net.
No, that's in my warehouse. That's going to go up with the. I'm going to sell that with the moon landing slides. That's That's a detailed model of the Lost in Space robot.
How much?
Don't know. Couple $100.
Okay. No, it's got nothing to do with the lunar
slides. You got to put in your bid, Luke.
No, it doesn't. But it's space related.
No, Adam, you should. I love it. I want it.
Yeah, all right. I'll get it. I'll get it catalogued and I'll get it online. Then you can.
Luke,
then you
you're
can
giving away your cards too soon. People know that you want it now.
You're a wood duck now.
Wood duck. You warned me about this years ago with the TV week with Jimmy Hannon on it.
Yes.
Oh, what have I done? Kelsey, redact. Warning, Will Robinson. Danger. What have I done, Kelsey? What have I...
No, you got to put your bid in and you got to fight for it like everyone else, but you've shot yourself in the foot there.
No way. Redact. Adam McDonald, how can people find you? Tell us what you do.
I run an auction house through Allbids. We're called Evans Hastings Valuers and Auctioneers, EHVA. So have a look online, go EHVA, hit all our socials, especially hit up our Instagram. Anyone that goes on our Instagram and says and posts a message, say, we listen to Adam, you'll get a free tote bag, an Evans Hastings little canvas tote bag. So anyone hit me up, get on the socials and you'll see exactly what we do.
I'll put the links to that in the description of this episode so you can get there easily, and I'll put a post up on Facebook as well so you can find them easily as well.
Folks, please give us some feedback on some of our hot or not so hot topics today. I would love to know how you're thinking, what you're thinking. Suggestions for our nostalgia segment. I like the way we were, but I'm up for suggestions. And Millennial, I'll catch you next time. And Vice Captain Adam McDonald, the expert on memorabilia, talk to you soon.
Thanks, Skip. Thanks, Kels.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening into episode 85 of the Bonafide podcast. Myself, the Millennial, the Vice Captain, and everybody else, we love you. And my thought for the day, Kelsey, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey, when you lend somebody money, you know the first thing you should do?
What?
Give them a big hug.
Why?
Because through experience, it's probably the last time you'll ever see them.
Ha 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 ha. Very good. Claps for Luke.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So remember, if you want something easy that actually fits into a busy day, check out Power B from Nature B. Full meal replacement. Chocolate flavour, 2 shakes a day. The intro pack's only $39.95 and it comes with a 100% money-back guarantee, no questions asked. If you don't like it, the links are in the description. And like anything, it works best alongside regular exercise and a balanced diet.